Chapter 1045. In addition to the difficulty of cloning and the uncertain consumption of funds, there is another thing that worries Hyojin, and that is the strength of the clone body. Yes, the strength. However, he is not worried about the strength of the clone body. On the contrary, he is worried that the clone body after fusing with the first-generation cells will have the same mutation as the previous wind clone, which is beyond his expectations. And for the bloodline fusion ritual, the clones of various attributes are not as simple as the stronger the better. In the ritual, the 7 attributes of yin, yang, and 5 elements of chakra must reach a delicate balance in order to complete the final nature fusion and achieve the goal of merging into one. It can be said that except for the main body of yin release, which can be slightly stronger by half a level, the strength of the other 6 clones must be strictly controlled within a certain range, and the previous wind clone was actually a bit over the limit. This is also the reason why Suijin had to turn around and strengthen the water clone that had already been fully developed. Balance is the key, and through the previous experience of cloning water, fire, wind, earth, and lightning clones, Hyojin established a set of models to predict the strength of the clone body. Using this set of models to evaluate, he can easily draw a conclusion. That is, once the first-generation cells are used and a perfect cell fusion is completed like the previous 5 clones, the probability of the clone body strength exceeding the limit is very high. The main reason for this result is none other than the yin and yang fusion. Hyojin, as a member of the Hyuga clan with the Byakugan Kekkei, has the yin release chakra of the Otsutsuki Himura clan in his body, and although Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan's main attribute is the wind attribute, he also has the yang release chakra of the Otsutsuki Himura clan in his body. When Seong-jin used Kimimaro's cell tissue to create the wind release clone body, the fusion of yin and yang was quietly achieved, creating a genetic atavism, creating a wind-release clone body with an exaggerated strength. The opposite example was the fire escape clone. Hyojin represented Otsutsuki Himura's yin chakra, while Jishui, Itachi, Sasuke, and others represented Otsutsuki Himura's yin chakra. Since both of them were yin flight, they were unable to break through to the 6th Daos level. Not only were they unable to complement each other, they would even consume each other. Therefore, all the clones that were created had all sorts of mutations. Some were incomplete. Some were deformed. There were also those who underwent a gender mutation due to excessive yin escape. Based on these 2 examples, it was not difficult to predict what would happen once the cells of Hyojin, who represented the yin chakra of Otsutsuki Himura, and the yang chakra of Otsutsuki Himura, who represented the yang chakra of Otsutsuki Himura, were perfectly fused. In fact, there was a living example in the original space and time, and that was Bo-Ren. Bo-Ren's father, Naruto, was the yang chakra of Otsutsuki Himura, and his mother, Hinata, was the yin chakra of Otsutsuki Himura. Bo-Ren inherited his parents' bloodline and underwent an unknown mutation, awakening a special pupil technique called cleansing eye. Hyojin, who had awakened the Tenseigan, had a much stronger yin chakra than Hinata. At the same time, the strength of the yang chakra of the first generation was only slightly weaker than Naruto, who had reached the 6th Daos level. Therefore, if Hyojin and the first generation's cell tissue could be perfectly fused, it would be difficult to predict the upper limit of the strength of the clone body. If I waste time and effort to create a yang escape clone that I can't use, it will be troublesome. While thinking, Hyojin slightly frowned. His time and funds were limited, and if he spent a lot of money and a lot of time to create a clone body that was too strong to be used in the bloodline fusion ritual, it would be a loss for him. Because no matter how strong the yang escape clone body was, it couldn't be stronger than the bloodline fusion ritual, and if it couldn't be used in the ritual, it would just be a useful puppet. Should I try and thoroughly analyze the first generation cell, or should I choose a safer and more conservative method? Rubbing his chin, Hyojin weighed the options. If he followed his heart, he would want to try boldly because the unknown was both scary and fascinating. However, the recent action plan of the Akatsuki organization, revealed by Obsidian, gave him a lot of pressure, and he didn't dare to act recklessly. Nagato's current situation, according to Hyojin's model analysis, was a situation where the Yang chakra of the Thousand Hand clan and the Yang chakra of the Uzumaki clan had a qualitative change, and they were trying to break through to the 6th Daos level. Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing wouldn't happen. However, Nagato was special in that he had a pair of Rinnegan that could suppress the first-generation cell, which made the two Yang chakra and Rinnegan reach a subtle balance, quietly completing the yin and yang integration, and a qualitative change occurred. Although the Amatsukami that I created united the Uchiha clan and the village, I didn't expect that it would also unite the Akatsuki organization. Thinking of this, Hyojin sighed softly. The Akatsuki organization in the original space and time had actually been in a state of division. The Nagato faction and the Obsidian faction were wary of each other and used each other. This can be seen from the fact that the Obsidian didn't open the Uchiha Madara's first-generation cell transplantation technology to Nagato, and the fact that Nagato's body was getting worse day by day, and the fact that Conan secretly prepared 600 billion detonation talismans to deal with the Obsidian. The emergence of the Amatsukami organization, although Hyojin's original intention was achieved, and the village and the Uchiha clan united, it also unexpectedly made Nagato and the Obsidian group together. As a result, Nagato's strength was far beyond the original space and time. It can be said that other people in the Akatsuki organization, Hyojin didn't put them in his eyes, but as long as he thought of Nagato, he would inexplicably have a headache. However, it was also because he thought of Nagato that Hyojin was determined to use the first-generation cell. Because he must completely conquer the first-generation cell, this is not only for his Yang release clone, but also for the upcoming Type 4 biological armor and the future transplant surgery for Xiangyu. Nagato could reach the current level by transplanting Rinnegan and the first-generation cell, so there is no reason why Xiangyu, who meets the same conditions, can't do this. Therefore, using the first-generation cell clone can also prepare the technical reserves for the formal transplant of the first-generation cell for Xiangyu in the future. After all, Hyojin doesn't have the technology to make white Zetsu like Madara Uchiha, so he must further analyze the first-generation cell to ensure that Xiangyu can safely transplant the first-generation cell. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1046. Hyojin had always been a man of action, so after he made up his mind, he immediately eliminated all distractions and devoted himself to the cell fusion of the Yang release clone. However, just as he expected, the invasiveness of the primogenitor cells was so strong that even his cell tissue could not withstand it. In the first batch of 500 test tubes, more than 400 of them did not even last 10 minutes, and the cell tissue in the remaining dozens of test tubes also died in the next 30 minutes. Looking at this result, Hyojin muttered to himself, "The cell tissue of the primogenitor seems to contain some of the characteristics of the divine tree." He had checked the records of the village. Although the Senpai clan had the physique that other clans envied, the normal Senpai clan only had a little more chakras amount and a stronger recovery ability. Some of the weaker ones were no different from ordinary ninjas. The second generation Naruto and Tsunade were already the best of the Senpai clan, and they belonged to the relatively rare category in the history of the Senpai clan. As for the primogenitor, it was probably unprecedented in the history of the Senpai clan for nearly 1,000 years. Because of the primogenitor, many clans would overestimate the Senpai clan, but in fact, the primogenitor could not be used as an example to measure the strength of the Senpai clan. The situation of the primogenitor was more like the wind release clone of Hyojin, which showed a rare atavism phenomenon, and obtained a physique that was close to the ancestor Otsutsuki Azura. And because Otsutsuki Ajura was the son of the Six-Path Sage, who was the ten-tailed Jinchuriki, he inherited the physique of the Six-Path Sage, and his body contained the characteristics of the divine tree. The characteristics of the divine tree may be the key to the abnormal physique of the primogenitor, and also the key to the extraordinary wood release of the first generation. Wood release could absorb chakra like the Rinnegan, it could restrain the tailed beasts, and the primogenitor cells could replenish the ocular power of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and so on. These phenomena were probably due to the characteristics of the divine tree. While analyzing, Hyojin began the second batch of cell fusion. As expected, all of them failed. Then came the third batch, fourth batch, fifth batch. Because he had already made up his mind, Hyojin was not affected by the continuous failures. He continued to repeat the process of cell fusion and carefully analyzed the reason for the failure in my village. Clang clang clang, two silhouettes collided continuously in the training field next to the Uchiha tribe's territory. Every time they collided, an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing would be heard. After a long time, Sasuke successfully circled behind Itachi and pressed his kunai against Itachi's throat. While panting lightly, he smiled proudly and said, "Brother, it seems like I've won this time." Itachi slowly turned around and looked at Sasuke. "You've grown up." Ga. As soon as he finished speaking, Itachi's body turned into a flock of black crows. "Crow clone technique?" Sasuke's face darkened, and then he snorted lightly. "Brother, this kind of technique is useless against me." After saying that, he made a seal with one hand and shouted at an extremely fast speed, "Fire release, great fireball technique." Boom! In an instant, a huge fireball was spat out from Sasuke's mouth and attacked the crows in midair. Although he was making a seal with one hand, whether it was speed or power, the great fireball technique released by Sasuke was terrifying. In just an instant, the entire training field was dyed red, showing Sasuke's extraordinary attainments in ninjutsu. In the blink of an eye, the crows in the sky were completely engulfed by the flames. Amidst the mournful crows, the crows that were engulfed by the flames fled in all directions. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace, leaving only some black feathers slowly falling in the air. The corner of Sasuke's mouth twitched, and he immediately activated the 3 Magatama Sharingan in his eye sockets, carefully observing his surroundings, looking for Itachi's figure. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, the black feathers floating in the air that he ignored suddenly turned into shurikens and shot at him from all directions. Genjutsu? Sasuke immediately judged that this was Itachi's genjutsu, turning shurikens into feathers and deceiving him. In a panic, he quickly took out several shurikens from the ninja bag around his waist. At the same time, he used his Sharingan to see the flight trajectory of all the shurikens that were shooting at him. He used the shurikens to shoot at some of the shurikens that were blocking his retreat one by one, avoiding Itachi's attack. Then he smiled. "Brother, I didn't expect you to use this kind of trick. But in front of my Sharingan, this kind of trick is also useless." On the sidelines, watching Sasuke moving around alone in the practice field, sometimes shooting shurikens, sometimes making hand seals to release ninjutsu, and sometimes shouting triumphantly at the air, Jishui and Shinichi looked at each other in confusion. After a while, Shinichi asked Itachi, who was standing beside him with a surprised look, "Did you solve him with just a genjutsu?" Jishui was also very surprised. Sasuke has clearly awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. It stands to reason that he shouldn't be so easily confused by your genjutsu, right? There is no doubt that the so-called fierce battle in the practice field is just Itachi's genjutsu. From the moment Sasuke proposed to compete with Itachi, Sasuke has already fallen into Itachi's genjutsu. His carefree battle and triumphant shouting are all carried out in the genjutsu against the air. Itachi explained calmly, when he thought that he would never fall into the genjutsu with the Manjikyu Sharingan, he had already revealed his flaws. If he was cautious enough, he would have noticed that something was wrong, but his subconscious refused to admit that he would fall into my genjutsu, so he hasn't seen through my genjutsu until now. Jishui asked, "Did you give him a hint?" Itachi nodded lightly. "Yeah, but he ignored it." Looking at Sasuke jumping up and down like a clown, Shinichi curled his lips and said, "It's really not easy to deal with a brother like you. I'm glad that I don't have a brother like you. Thinking about it, my childhood was very happy." Jishui smiled and shook his head. Itachi's genjutsu attainments are among the best in the shinobi clan, and he has successfully transplanted the Hashirama cells, completing a certain degree of yin-yang fusion, and his pupil power has greatly increased, so it's not too much of an exaggeration to subdue Sasuke with genjutsu. It's just that Sasuke was actually defeated by Itachi's shadow clone, which made Jishui a little puzzled. At this time, Itachi bowed to Jishui and Shinichi and said, "I have to rush to the ninja school to deal with the school affairs. I will leave Sasuke to you." Jishui said, "Don't worry, with us here, Sasuke will be fine." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes and monthly vote. In addition, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you everyone. Tomorrow there will be a new update. Chapter 1047. After Itachi left, looking at Sasuke who is still trapped in the genjutsu, Shinichi asked Jishui, "What should we do now? Should we go over and wake him up?" Jishui hesitated for a while and said, "Let's wait for him to break the genjutsu by himself. If we make a move now, it will make him very embarrassed. After all, he has already awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, we should protect his self-esteem." "Alright." Shinichi pondered for a moment and immediately nodded. Sasuke has just awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan and is full of vigor. At this time, it is better to give him some face and let him break the genjutsu by himself. Then, Shinichi said, "I didn't expect that even though Sasuke has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, his ability to distinguish genjutsu is still so poor." Jishui shook her head and said, "No, if the opponent is you and I who have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, Sasuke should have noticed it a long time ago. The reason why he is still trapped in Itachi's genjutsu is not because his pupil power is too weak, but because he is too eager to get Itachi's recognition and surpass him. It is this kind of emotion that interferes with his insight and judgment. The highest level of genjutsu is not only to deceive the opponent's vision, hearing, smell, touch, taste, but also to understand how to use the opponent's emotions and the opponent's mentality. Itachi saw Sasuke's impetuous mentality of wanting to prove himself, as well as the fact that Sasuke didn't have Manjikyu Sharingan, so he unconsciously underestimated Sasuke and used this genjutsu. Shinichi curled his lips and said, "You guys who play with genjutsu are really annoying." Jishui didn't care about Shinichi's teasing and sighed softly. Sasuke's mentality is too impetuous now. I don't know whether it is good or bad for his future if we stimulate him to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan so early. Shinichi empathized with her and said with a smile, "People will always grow up. Don't worry about it. Didn't I go through the same thing back then?" When Shinichi had just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan, he was even more arrogant than the current Sasuke, thinking that he was invincible in the world. He charged into the root base alone, intending to kill Danzo all by himself. If he hadn't met Hyojin on his way to escape and been taught a lesson by Hyojin's Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion, allowing him to see what "there's always someone better than you out there" meant, the grass on his grave would have been as tall as a person. In the field, Sasuke smirked and said to Itachi, "As expected of my big brother, to be able to do this. It seems that if I don't go all out, I won't be able to defeat you today." After saying that, Sasuke glanced at the gloomy dark clouds above his head. At the beginning of the fight, Kuroto has been using fire release ninjutsu in the air from time to time in order to create this rain cloud. The land of fire, where Konoha is located, has abundant rain, and the humidity in the air is very high, so it doesn't take much effort to create a small-scale rain cloud. There is no doubt that Sasuke is preparing to use the Kirin technique that he learned from Kakashi. This battle with Itachi is of great significance to him, so he doesn't want to use any jutsu related to the Manjikyu Sharingan. He wants to defeat Itachi fair and square with the Samagatama Sharingan. But if he doesn't use the Manjikyu Sharingan, then there aren't many methods that he can use right now. After all, many of the ninjutsu that he knows were taught to him by Itachi, so if he wants to end the battle with a single blow, Kirin is his only option at present. After carefully assessing the scale of the rain cloud above his head, Sasuke thought to himself, if I use my full strength, then the power will be too great, and it is very likely that brother will be injured, so I have to reduce the power of this technique. There is no need to use the purple lightning or something like that, just the ordinary lightning release should be enough to determine the winner. Sasuke is very clear about the destructive power of the Kirin technique. If the thunder contained in the rain cloud is strong enough, then with the purple lightning, even if the power of the purple Kirin is more than enough to destroy most of the S-class ninjutsu, it will be enough to destroy the world. Brother, you must be careful, the technique that I am about to use is not ordinary. With that said, Sasuke raised his right hand high, and at the same time, a dazzling blue lightning flashed on the palm of his right hand. Brother, from today onwards, I will surpass you. After shouting, Sasuke took the opportunity to swing his right hand down. At this moment, Sasuke felt someone grabbing his arm, so he turned his head and found that Jishui and Shinichi both reached out and grabbed his right arm that was about to swing down at the same time. Sasuke said with dissatisfaction, Brother Jishui, Brother Shinichi, don't get in the way of my match with brother. Shinichi curled his lips and said, if we don't make a move, this practice field will be destroyed by you. It's just a practice field. After a pause, Sasuke looked at the opposite side, but found that Itachi was not in the field at all, so he looked at Jishui and Shinichi with a puzzled face. What's going on? Where's brother? Shinichi turned his head to the side and whistled. Jishui opened his mouth, wanting to explain euphemistically, but did not know how to explain for a moment. After being stunned for a moment, Sasuke reacted, could it be? Was I under an illusion just now? In the practice field on the other side of the village. Standing in the field, Naruto held the back of his head with his hands and asked casually, what are we practicing? Bai smiled and said, I'm not necessarily stronger than you in ninjutsu and physical skills, so there's nothing I can help you with. However, in terms of practicing immortal skills, I have some insights. Would you like to hear them? Naruto asked carefully, these should be secrets. Are you really willing to tell me? Yes. Bai nodded. Naruto's expression immediately became much more serious and he said, I don't know why, but every time I need to use immortal skills, it doesn't work. Is it because I'm too stupid? Bai shook his head. Naruto, you can use nature energy. Just this alone is already better than 99% of the ninjas in the ninja world. Naruto scratched his head. Really? Bai said, the reason why you can't use immortal skills when you need to use them is actually because you're too anxious, and the way you absorb nature energy is rather crude. As he spoke, Bai activated immortal mode, and the aura on his body instantly changed. Feeling the surging nature energy on Bai, Naruto's eyes widened. Wow, sister Bai, you're so powerful. Sister? Sister? Bai was stunned on the spot. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1048. While Haku was guiding Naruto in his cultivation, on a big tree in the distance, Jiraiya, Red Bean, and Asuma were standing in a line and watching closely. Seeing that Haku didn't seem to have any preparation and easily entered the sage mode, Jiraiya's eyebrows twitched and he sighed, this is really embarrassing. If he wanted to enter the sage mode, it would take him a long time to do so, and it would be far easier than Haku. Red Bean asked, Jiraiya-sama, Why did this sound ninja specially come to guide Naruto? Asuma was also a little curious. Yes, and it's a secret skill of guiding immortal arts. Jiraiya shook his head. How would I know? Even among the high-level ninjas in the shinobi world, immortal arts is a very magical secret skill. Many villages have studied immortal arts, but none of them, including Mai, have achieved any results so far. This has also led to a very small number of ninjas in the shinobi world who have mastered immortal arts, so it is very difficult to understand Haku's behavior of teaching immortal arts to other ninjas for free. At this time, Red Bean was a little embarrassed. Then, should we stop it? As a member of Hyojin's shadow guards, she was specially sent by Hyojin to protect Naruto, but she really doesn't know much about immortal arts, so she can't distinguish whether the skill Haku taught Naruto is real or not, or if it's a skill with some flaws or even harmful. It's not that Red Bean likes to speculate maliciously, but this kind of thing has happened too many times in the shinobi world before, so she has to be careful as she is responsible for protecting Naruto. Jiraiya observed carefully and said, "Don't worry, let's take a look first. Outside my village." Swish, with a whooshing sound, one of Yugo's shadow clones landed in a remote forest. At this time, a figure came out from behind a big tree in the forest. Lord Orochimaru. Yugo's shadow clone hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Orochimaru asked casually, "Is everything going well?" Yugo answered, "Yep, it's going well. Haku has already begun teaching Naruto." Obviously, teaching Naruto for free was not a whim of Bai's idle time, but a special order from Orochimaru. Immediately afterwards, Yugo told Orochimaru about the situation in my village. The Mizukage of the Mist Village and Kirin, Kamui, and Mizukage, who came to participate in the Chunin exam, have secretly left my village this morning, and the candidates from other villages don't seem to have any plans to leave my village. Chilin secretly left Mai? After a pause, Orochimaru said, "Does that mean that Mai's plan to form a rapid response team is going to be put on hold?" Yugo nodded. "Yep, the matter of forming a rapid response team seems to have been put on hold." This again. After a contemptuous smile, Orochimaru asked, "How is Kimimara's body?" Yugo answered, "You are right. Tsunade-sama, who is also a Sannin like you, is indeed very resourceful. Although Kimimara's body hasn't improved, it seems that the deterioration has been stopped." Hearing this, Orochimaru pondered for a moment, then immediately ordered, "For the time being, all of you will stay in my village, and pay close attention to Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto." "Yes." Yugo bowed and accepted the order, then immediately disappeared with a bang. After Yugo dispelled the shadow clone, Orochimaru jumped to the top of the tree and looked at the nearby my village. At this time, Dugo asked Orochimaru, "Orochimaru-sama, why did you arrange for Haku to guide Naruto?" Orochimaru smiled. "Don't you think this is very interesting?" "Interesting?" At this time, Orochimaru's gaze fell on the row of eye-catching Naruto rocks in the village and said, "The son of 4 generations has become my disciple, and Naruto's position has also been taken by my disciple. Don't you think this is a kind of irony?" Hearing Orochimaru mention Kuroto, Do was a little upset. "The position of Hokage should have been taken by you, the Sandaime-sama helping the Yondaime-sama to take the position. From the results, it is obviously a mistake." Orochimaru smiled noncommittally. Losing to Minato in the election for 4 generations Naruto is indeed a knot in his heart. This is not because he cares about Naruto's position, but because he can't let go of the fact that he lost. It is precisely because of this that Hyojin retook Naruto's position and became the village's 5th generation leader. This matter made him very proud, but of course, he won't say it out loud. Soon, Orochimaru retracted his gaze and said, "The results of the laboratory should be out soon, right?" Dugo replied, "Well, the new batch of clones should soon be fully developed. This time, there may be clones that are born with the ability to absorb nature energy." Let's go, Echo Shinobi Village. Orochimaru's eyes no longer have the slightest reluctance. His figure flashed and disappeared above the tree crown. For him, nothing is more important than exploring the secret of immortality, so when the cloning experiment is at a critical moment, everything on Mai's side is not worth his nostalgia. And his current research direction is the immortal technique, because as far as he knows, whether it is the white snake sage of the Ryuchi cave or the great toad sage of the Mount Myaboku, they are all old monsters that have lived for thousands of years, so it is not clear whether the immortal technique can help them achieve immortality, but it is absolutely true that it can prolong their life. Inside the Hyuga clan. Phew, Ningxi exhaled softly, then looked at himself in the mirror, his eyes unconsciously locked on the diamond-shaped mark on his forehead in the mirror. Did I succeed? A look of joy gradually appeared on Ningxi's face. In the secret technique scroll that Hyojin gave to Ningxi, there is a detailed analysis of the principle of the Ein seal, as well as his own experience and skills in practicing the Ein seal. And Ningxi himself is a Hyuga clansman who has Byakugan and practices soft fist, so his understanding of the human body's meridians is far better than ordinary ninjas, so it only took him half a day to successfully master the Ein seal improved by Hyojin. After putting on the Mai's forehead protector and covering the diamond-shaped mark of the Ein seal, Ningxi once again spread out the secret technique scroll and studied the respiratory technique, recorded at the end of the secret technique scroll. It can actually use breathing to exercise the heart and lungs, it's incredible. With just a little bit of understanding, Ningxi, who is good at body techniques, noticed the subtlety of this respiratory technique. If I master this respiratory technique, it will be easier for me to practice the 8 inner hidden gates in the future. Combined with the Ein seal, I may be able to catch up with Xiaoli's progress. Here is the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly vote. There will be updates at night, but it may be a little late. Chapter 1049. Sasuke, who learned that he was under the illusion, finally suppressed his arrogance and humbly accepted the guidance of the 2 Uchiha kaleidoscopes, Jishui and Shinichi. After learning that Haku was a boy, Naruto, who was stunned, also began his cultivation. In the practice room of his home, Ningxi practiced the breathing technique in the scroll again and again, and practiced the 8 inner hidden gates together with the breathing technique. Not only Sasuke, Naruto, and Ningxi, the other students also became more diligent after seeing the strong people of each village in the Chunin exam. In the My Hospital, Sakura, Hinata, and Zyuen officially began the practice of medical ninjutsu under the guidance of Mute. Xiaoli received special training from Guy, Shikamaru, Chinsei, and Ino. The new generation of Ino Shikacho were also practicing tactics under the guidance of the elders of the family. Everyone was working hard to improve in a way that suited them. The ninjas of the other villages in the My Hospital were not idle. Although the Chunin exam was over, the competition between them still existed. Cloud Village's Druid targeted Rock Village's Deadale, while Rock Village's Black Earth and Sand Crypsis's Hand were competing. Cloud Village's Blonde Beauty Sammy targeted Kimimaro. Whoosh, with a whistling sound, a kunai was inserted into the battlefield where Obito and Sui Jin fought not long ago, and immediately after, a figure flashed and appeared in front of the kunai. There is no doubt that the figure that suddenly appeared was not a bystander, but Kakashi, who rushed all the way here using the Flying Thunder God technique. Seeing that it was Kakashi, the captain of the patrol team stationed here quickly greeted him. "Acting Sir." Kakashi looked around and asked, "Did you find anything new?" The patrol captain shook his head. Kakashi did not ask any more questions. Instead, he stepped into the battlefield, and his expression gradually became solemn. On the way, he had already imagined the situation on the battlefield, but when he actually arrived at the battlefield, he realized that his previous estimation was still too conservative. The scale of the battlefield was much larger than he had imagined. It didn't look like it was caused by a fight between ninjas, but more like a tailed beast. Soon, he arrived in front of a circular pit and found a whirlpool-like mark in the pit. He was shocked. This is? Within a cave in the country of fire. A twisting vortex suddenly appeared and Obsidian walked out of it. Almost at the same time, Ju popped out of the ground and appeared in the cave. Looking at Obsidian, Zetsu asked, "Obsidian, we haven't found any trace of the Mizukage. How do we explain this to Nagato?" At this moment, Obsidian's figure suddenly swayed, and he staggered a few steps. Zetsu asked, "What's wrong with you?" Obsidian covered his eyes and shook his head. Then, he took off the red cloud suit. As Obsidian took off the red cloud suit, the 2-3 Magatama Sharingan transplanted on his back were immediately revealed, but it was a little different than usual. One of the 2 Sharingan was actually closed. This? Zetsu was startled for a moment, and then he asked hurriedly, "Did you use Izanagi again?" Obviously, only the forbidden technique Izanagi could consume a 3 Magatama Sharingan, so when Zetsu saw the closed Sharingan on Obsidian's back, he guessed that Obsidian had used Izanagi. Obsidian, who had slightly recovered, nodded. "Yes, I almost died in the hands of Amatsukami." Zetsu was a little confused, but just now you, Obsidian interrupted Zetsu. "I can't let Nagato think that I have lost the ability to control the situation." "So, you deliberately said that to Kakazu and the others just now?" After a pause, Zetsu asked curiously, "That Kirin and Kasumi are so strong? How could they force you to use Izanagi?" If it was Homasubi, Wind Chime, and Xidagarba from Amatsukami, he would not be surprised. After all 3 of them had killed Obsidian before. But Kirin and Kasumi, who were completely unknown before the Chunin exam, actually had such strength, which surprised him. After all, masters were not planted in the ground, so it was impossible for them to appear out of thin air. Obsidian said calmly, while recovering his pupil power, "That Kirin should be the member of Amatsukami who represents Thunder Release, and his strength is even stronger than 4 generations Laying." After fighting against each other for so long, Obsidian had already studied the composition of the members of Amatsukami countless times, so as soon as he confirmed the identity of the member of Kirin, he keenly judged that Kirin was most likely a member of Amatsukami who represented Thunder Release. Zetsu said, "Kirin represents Thunder Release, so the member of Amatsukami who didn't show up is the one who represents Yang Release?" Obsidian's eyes narrowed. "Kasumi is the one who represents Yang Release in Amatsukami." "What?" Zetsu was shocked because according to the information he had inquired before, Kirin's performance in the Chunin exam was very outstanding, enough to be a member of Amatsukami, but Kasumi's performance was mediocre, and he didn't even pass the 3rd exam. Obsidian said, "I suspect that Kasumi has Rinnegan." Zetsu changed his previous attitude and suddenly said in a gloomy tone, "That's impossible." Obsidian glanced at Zetsu with a little surprise. Zetsu immediately changed back to his previous appearance and shook his head. "I mean it's impossible, Madara's Rinnegan took decades to get, there is no second pair of Rinnegan in the shinobi world." The masked man said, "I also thought so before, but don't forget, Amatsukami took away Uchiha Fugaku's Manjikyu Sharingan. If they know the secrets of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and even the Rinnegan, it is not impossible for them to awaken a pair of Rinnegan like Madara." Zetsu still shook his head. "No, Madara is special." Obsidian sneered. "Isn't the Otsutsuki on the moon special? The reason why I suspect that Kasumi has Rinnegan is because she can use Shinra Tensei, and my pupil power was consumed by the opponent's Shinra Tensei. If not so, Kirin would not be able to escape from my Kamui space." "This?" Zetsu was shocked. "The opponent is more powerful than we expected." After a sigh, Obsidian continued, "The backup plan you mentioned before, I'm afraid we have to start preparing now." Zetsu lowered his head and hid his face in the shadow, muttering to himself, "How did things become like this?" Obsidian said, Accept the reality, there are loopholes in Madara's plan. He completely ignored the Otsutsuki family on the moon. Such a mistake is too fatal. The third chapter is to thank Lucky World again for becoming the 6th guild master of this book. Chapter 1050. No one knows better than Zetsu that the descendants of the Otsutsuki Himura on the moon haven't done anything to interfere with the shinobi world for hundreds of years. Even after the Outer Path demon statue was stolen, they didn't do anything. Therefore, neither he nor Uchiha Madara regarded the Otsutsuki on the moon as a threat. Unexpectedly, in the last 10 years, the Otsutsuki on the moon suddenly became active. Not only did they actively participate in the affairs of the shinobi world, but they even formed an organization called Amatsukami. This is indeed our mistake. After a long time, Zetsu sighed. Obsidian said, "We should stop Nagato's adventure this time. Nagato is very determined this time. I'm afraid we can't convince him." After a pause, Zetsu continued, "And you know Nagato's current strength is much stronger than we expected. If we let him participate in the backup plan, once the plan succeeds, we will have no means to restrain him in the future." From the beginning to the end, in the eyes of Obsidian and Zetsu, Nagato is just a tool selected by Madara Uchiha to nourish the Rinnegan. It was only under the pressure of Amatsukami that in order to strengthen the combat power of Akatsuki, they opened the first-generation cell transplantation technology of Madara Uchiha to Nagato. It was thought that after the transplantation of the first-generation cells, Nagato would at most recover his vitality and get rid of his disability. But no one thought that Nagato would actually fuse with the first-generation cells with the help of the Rinnegan and the immortal body of the Maelstrom clan, completing a transformation in his physique. It has to be said that Madara's vision is very unique in selecting the candidate to nourish the Rinnegan. And now, Obsidian and Zetsu don't have many means to restrain Nagato, and Nagato is always vigilant against them. They don't even have a chance to sneak attack. So if they continue to strengthen Nagato's strength, even if they can eventually defeat Amatsukami, their plan of Eye of the Moon will also fail. After all, the purpose of Nagato collecting the tailed beasts to resurrect the Ten Tails is only to fulfill Yahiko's last wish, to suppress the entire shinobi world with his own strength, so that the shinobi world will have a long-lost peace in fear of him, not the Eye of the Moon plan. Obsidian narrowed his eyes. Do you want to take this opportunity to solve Nagato, Amatsukami, and the 5 great shinobi villages at once? Zetsu nodded and said seriously, "With Nagato's current strength, it is possible. I can feel a great pressure just by staying beside him." Unlike Obsidian, who has never seen the 6-path level, Zetsu has seen the 6-path level and even the stronger Kekii net. So he is very clear that after Nagato made the 5 Jinchuriki into the new 6 paths of pain and got the 2-tailed, 4-tailed, 5-tailed, 6-tailed, and 8-tailed chakra in one fell swoop, his strength is infinitely close to the 6-path level. If Nagato can be given 10 years or even 5 years to practice, Zetsu feels that Nagato may even be able to break through the threshold of the 6-path level and complete the achievements that Uchiha Madara and Hashirama failed to achieve. Because Nagato can be said to be the true inheritor of the legacy of Uchiha Madara and Hashirama, he is a strong ninja standing on the shoulder of the strong. In Zetsu's view, although the leader of Amatsukami, Otsutsuki Samurai is the strongest ninja in the world who can condense the truth-seeking ball, the other party obviously hasn't reached the complete 6-path level. If not for this, the Akatsuki organization wouldn't have been able to retreat successfully in the previous confrontations. Therefore, Nagato, who is now infinitely close to the 6-path level, definitely has the strength to fight against Otsutsuki Samurai. Even if he can't win, at least he can fight with both of them. Obsidian nodded and said, "Well, let's do it." Although this plan is a bit risky, the benefits are indeed the greatest, and because Kuroto knows that Zetsu is the product of the will of Uchiha Madara, He only thinks that Zetsu is planning all this for the resurrection of Uchiha Madara, so he didn't have any other doubt. After all, if they want to resurrect Uchiha Madara, Nagato will become a big trouble that can't be avoided, because now neither he nor Zetsu has the strength to force Nagato to use Rebirth Heaven technique to resurrect Uchiha Madara. After reaching a consensus, the two quickly left the cave and returned to the secret base in the Land of Grass. In the base, after transplanting a new 3-tomo Sharingan to his back, Obsidian looked for Nagato. Looking at Obsidian, Nagato asked indifferently, "Did you fail again?" Obsidian explained, "Amatsukami has already laid a trap for the remaining Jinchuriki, and it will be difficult to capture them before destroying Amatsukami and the 5 great shinobi villages." Nagato glanced coldly at Obsidian and said, "I'm not interested in your explanation." Obsidian's face sank. If he and Nagato were still in a cooperative relationship before, then as Nagato's strength became stronger and stronger, the equality between them began to slowly tilt. At this point, Nagato's attitude towards him is almost the same as that of a subordinate. This is also the reason why Obsidian pretended to be strong in front of Nagato's Kakuzu and Flying Dan after losing the battle with Hyojin and Kamio. If he completely falls from being a cooperative to a subordinate, then his influence on Akatsuki will be greatly reduced. At that time, his years of painstaking planning may become a wedding dress for others. Suppressing his anger, Obsidian said, "Although I didn't catch the Mizukage this time, I got an unexpected harvest." Konan, who was standing beside Nagato, asked, "What harvest?" Obsidian said, "I found that there seems to be a pair of Rinnegan in Amatsukami." "What?" Konan's brows furrowed as he was taken aback. Nagato's indifferent face also showed a trace of emotion. "Are you sure?" Obsidian shook his head. "The other party is wearing a special mask. I can't confirm her eyes, but she can use Shinra Tensei. This technique can't be faked." Konan looked uneasy. "How can this be?" Nagato asked. "How is the other party's strength?" Obsidian didn't hide anything and said bluntly, "Not too strong. In the process of fighting with me, she only used Shinra Tensei, but didn't use other Rinnegan techniques. Oh, by the way, she also has a strange ability to control sand." Konan hurriedly said, "Nagato, should we pause this operation until we know the other party's strength?" Nagato said with a decisive look, "Even if she has Rinnegan, she should have just obtained it not long ago, so she hasn't fully mastered the power of the Rinnegan, so our decisive battle can't be postponed. Instead, it should be brought forward. I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes." Chapter 1051. Advance? Konan instinctively wanted to object. Nagato stopped Konan and explained seriously, "Although I am getting stronger, the other party is also getting stronger. If we continue to delay, it will only bring more destruction to the world." Konan wanted to say something but hesitated. But Nagato shook his head. "I want to bring peace to the world in my own way, not destroy it. If the final result is failure, I will accept it." The rapid improvement of his own strength made Nagato suddenly realize that if this war continues, then whether the Akatsuki or Amatsukami wins, it will only bring destruction to the world. And this is contrary to Yahiko's expectations. Konan restrained the worry on her face and showed a smile. "Whether it is success or failure, I will be with you." Nagato said, "Don't worry, I am invincible now. Even if it is Otsutsuki Samurai, I will not be afraid. I will personally realize the wish of our 3 children." After saying that, Nagato turned his head to the side and said to Obsidian, "Go and prepare." "Okay." The masked man responded with a gloomy expression on his face under the vortex mask. After leaving Nagato's room, Obsidian and Zetsu met again. As soon as they met, Obsidian said, "Your analysis is right, we have lost control of Nagato. That guy now completely treats me as a subordinate, and my opinion is no longer taken seriously by him." Zetsu laughed. This is not all bad, at least they will be less guarded against us. Nagato's vigilance is the reason why he is eager to get rid of Nagato. For him, the best Jubi's Jinchuriki is neither Nagato nor Obsidian, but Uchiha Madara, who completely trusts him. Humph! Obsidian snorted in displeasure. Juju did not linger on this topic and said, I've already started the backup plan as per your instructions. However, the five-tailed beasts and the outer path golem are currently under Nagato's control. Whether our backup plan succeeds or not depends on the final outcome of the battle between Nagato and Amatsukami. Obsidian pondered for a moment and said, I still believe that Nagato's chances of winning are not high, so we must help him weaken the strength of Amatsukami and the 5 great shinobi villages. Ju asked, What do you want me to do? Obsidian's gaze turned cold. I want to know the exact whereabouts of the 5 great empires immediately. Ju smiled. Are you going to fight against a famous opponent? Obsidian nodded slightly. The relationship between the 5 great empires and the 5 great shinobi villages is actually interdependent. If this relationship has to be defined, then the daimyo of each country can simply be regarded as the financial owner of that country's shinobi village. For a rich shinobi village like my village, because of its good financial situation, it can receive many commission tasks. Therefore, the daimyo of the Land of Fire has little restriction on my village. Only when my village suffers heavy losses and is in financial crisis can the daimyo of the Land of Fire give orders to my village. The reason why Danzo was able to get the position before was that my village urgently needed the daimyo of the Land of Fire to provide funds to rebuild the village destroyed by Nagato, and Danzo had the support of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, so even if Danzo failed to pass the vote of confidence of the Jonin village, he still got the position of acting Naruto. Compared to the rich my village, the other shinobi villages are much more dependent on their daimyo. Especially the Sand Crypsis, in addition to the 4 generations of Kazekage's own business, more than half of the village's financial expenditure depends on the daimyo of the Land of Wind. Therefore, the daimyo of the Land of Wind has a great influence on the Sand Crypsis. Obsidian targeted this point and attacked the daimyo of each country before the decisive battle between Nagato and Amatsukami. He doesn't necessarily want to kill the daimyo of each country, but he wants to threaten the daimyo of each country so that the 5 great shinobi villages have no choice but to disperse their forces to protect the daimyo of each country. Immediately afterward, Obsidian asked, How many clones can you activate at the moment? Zetsu hesitated for a moment and said, Currently only 10,000. If you give me another 2 or 3 years, I can create more than 100,000 clones. 10,000 is enough. After a pause, Obsidian ordered, Activate them immediately, go through the sea and land, I want to launch a full-scale attack on the Mist Village. Zetsu looked doubtful, Can this force the Mizukage to show up? Obsidian grinned and said, I don't believe that he will sit back and watch the Mist Village be destroyed. Inside the Sky Fortress, for a whole week, Kuroda was repeatedly carrying out the cell fusion experiment. Countless failures did not destroy his confidence. He continued to sum up the failures and gradually came up with a new way of thinking. Clang, at this time, the door of the laboratory was pushed open, and one of Hyojin's shadow doppelgangers walked in. After putting the ninja bag on the table, the shadow doppelganger did not hesitate and immediately turned into white smoke and disappeared without a trace. Hyojin's real body picked up the ninja bag and poured out a pile of storage scrolls from it. Because of the continuous failures, the medicinal materials and experimental equipment stored in the laboratory were rapidly consumed, so in order to ensure the normal progress of the cell fusion experiment, Kuroda had to send his shadow doppelgangers to purchase new medicinal materials and equipment all over the shinobi world. In addition, because of the new discoveries in the experiment, he bought some equipment that was not available in the laboratory before. After carefully taking out the medicinal materials, equipment, and several new instruments from the storage scrolls, He immediately began another round of cell fusion with the help of the new instruments. Unlike the previous biological armor that could be assisted by sealing jutsu, the difficulty of cloning the yang release clone was more difficult than any of the previous clones. This difficulty was not only reflected in the various stages of the fusion, but also in the cultivation period after the fusion. In fact, during this week of experiments, Hyojin did harvest embryos that had completed the cell fusion. However, without exception, these embryos all grew into saplings in the incubator, causing the embryos that Hyojin spent countless efforts to complete to eventually become the pile of saplings in the garbage room. There is no doubt that the wood release that came with the first generation of cells brought great trouble to Hyojin's cell fusion and embryos development. He did not know when the embryos would turn into delicate green plant. Caw-caw, at this moment, a crow's cry came from outside the laboratory. Hyojin opened the door and let Crow in, then took the communication scroll from Crow's leg and opened it. Immediately, his face became gloomy and he said, "The Akatsuki organization has their eyes on Daimyo. What are they trying to do? Start the Fourth Shinobi World War? The second watch will be delivered. Sorry for being a bit late. Thank you to the students who tipped me yesterday. Thank you everyone. Also, today is Monday and the ranking list will be updated, so please give me some recommendation tickets. It's nothing, please support me." Chapter 1052. 4 days ago, Kakuzu attacked the daimyo of the Land of Fire, killing 37 guards and seriously injuring the daimyo himself. 3 days ago, Sasori attacked the daimyo of the Land of Wind, cutting off one of his arms. On the same day, a member of Akatsuki named Konan attacked the daimyo of the Land of Earth, causing a large number of casualties. 2 days ago, a member of Akatsuki named Madara of Uchiha attacked the daimyo of the Land of Lightning, killing several important people around the daimyo of the Land of Lightning. 1 day ago, Bipa Juzo, Kibi Onijirai, and others attacked the daimyo of the Land of Water, killing nearly 100 guards and leaving. After reading the contents of the communication scroll several times, Hyojin closed the scroll. After the initial surprise, he calmed down, and there was no trace of emotion in his eyes. If it was any other Kage who received this news, even if they could calmly formulate countermeasures, they would still panic, but Hyojin is different. He has no respect for the daimyo, and he doesn't care about the life or death of the daimyo at all, so he can jump out of the restrictions of his identity and look at this matter from the perspective of an irrelevant bystander. There is no doubt that these 5 attacks are full of strangeness. The Akatsuki's attacks were all completed within 3 days, which means that the news of the first attack didn't have time to spread before the follow-up attacks were launched. However, not a single one of the 5 attacks had succeeded. This undoubtedly shows that the Akatsuki's goal is not the daimyo at all. Their purpose of attacking the daimyo is to draw the power of the 5 great shinobi villages and make it convenient for the upcoming operation. Because the Akatsuki knows very well that even if they remove the daimyo in their positions, it will at most create some chaos in the 5 great countries, and when the new daimyo comes to power, these daimyo will only support the 5 great shinobi villages against the Akatsuki for their own safety. Therefore, only injuring the daimyo and not killing them is enough to cause chaos in the 5 great villages. This is an overt plot, and even if the 5 great shinobi villages have figured out the true purpose of the Akatsuki organization, they still have no choice but to send a large number of people to protect the daimyos, because if the 5 great shinobi villages don't pay enough attention to the Akatsuki organization, then the Akatsuki organization can easily kill the daimyos. At that time, the relationship between the 5 great shinobi countries and the 5 great shinobi villages will rapidly deteriorate. Tossing the communication scroll aside, Hyojin muttered, "Looks like they've made their move earlier than I expected." Kuroto thought that he still had a month to clone the Yang release clone and strengthen the Water release clone, but from the Akatsuki's attack on the daimyo, he smelled the smoke of gunpowder, and the war may be imminent. However, when he sensed that a great battle was approaching, he was surprisingly calm. After pondering for a while, Kuroda took out the water release clone from the large nutrition tank, and then used the soul descend technique to send his avatar into the water release clone. Because the water release clone is composed of white cells, and white cells are extremely tolerant, the appearance of this water release clone is the most similar to Hyojin's main body among all the clones. If it is not someone who is particularly close to Hyojin, it would be impossible to distinguish the difference between this water release clone and Hyojin's main body. After adapting to the water release clone for a while, Hyojin slowly made hand seals and used the multiple shadow clone technique, creating 10 shadow clones at once. Considering that the upcoming war may really be able to destroy the administrative system of the 5 major countries, so in order to prepare for a rainy day, Kuroda decided to let the 5 shadow clones act separately and go to the shinobi world to collect various herbs, equipment, and even ritual materials that he needs. He wants to ensure that even if the 5 great countries fall into complete chaos and the market completely collapses, he can still carry out his bloodline entanglement plan without too much interference. After that, he led the remaining 5 shadow clones to the training field of the floating fortress and instructed them to practice the Ghost Lantern clan's water transformation technique, water iron cannon technique, and dangerous steam explosion technique, as well as to practice the ice escape and boiling escape. Supporting 10 shadow clones at the same time is not a small challenge even for the current Hyojin. A large amount of mental energy consumption might even affect his cloning of the Yang release clone, but the abnormal behavior of the Akatsuki organization this time has made him unable to care too much about it. My village inside the Umbu base. We can't ignore this matter, the daimyo's safety must be guaranteed. The expression of the 4 generations of Kazekage was very excited. The fact that the daimyo of the Land of Wind was injured put a lot of pressure on him. The Land of Wind even said that they will reconsider the funds allocated to the Sand Crypts. The 3 generations of Tsuchikage Anoki said, the behavior of the Akatsuki organization this time is very abnormal. Their attack on the daimyo of the Land of Wind is likely to be to mobilize our manpower and disperse our strength. Many people nodded in agreement. After the 5 great shinobi villages realized the strength of the Akatsuki organization and their intention to capture the tailed beasts, they have been in a state of unity. Therefore, it is not difficult to understand that the Akatsuki organization wants to disperse the strength of the 5 great shinobi villages by attacking the daimyo. At this time, Kakashi said, it can be confirmed that the battlefield discovered a few days ago in the east of my village was caused by the Akatsuki organization and the Kirin squad of the Mist Village. Everyone was shocked by this news. Kakashi continued, at present, we can't contact the Mizukage for the time being, but there is news from the Mist Village that Genjutsu Mizukage of the Kirin squad has returned to the Mist Village and confirmed that the Akatsuki organization attacked them in order to find the whereabouts of the Mizukage. The 4 generations of Tsuchikage Laying said in a muffled voice, why is the Akatsuki organization so active recently? At this time, Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, stood up and said, everyone, according to the series of actions of the Akatsuki organization, it is not difficult to see that the Akatsuki organization is planning an attack against my village and the Jinchuriki. The Kazekage, Tsuchikage, and Laying nodded in unison. After glancing at everyone present, Itachi said, I propose that from now on, all the shinobi villages enter the highest state of combat readiness, and move all the daimyo to a safe area for unified protection. The 4 generations of Kazekage was the first to say, I agree. The 3 generations of Tsuchikage and 4 generations Laying looked at each other and immediately said, I agree. East of the Land of Fire. A my ninja squad that was patrolling the coastline suddenly stopped. One of the members of the squad asked the captain in confusion, Captain, why did you stop? The captain frowned and said, I seem to feel something. Knowing that the captain is a perception-type ninja, the 3 members of the patrol team immediately entered a state of alert and vigilantly observed the surroundings. At this moment, a white figure suddenly emerged from the ground in the distance. One of the team members shouted, "Everyone be careful, it's an enemy." Before his voice died away, another figure emerged from the ground in the distance, followed by a third, a fourth. Dense layers of figures emerged from the ground from all directions, surrounding Konoha's patrol team in 3 circles from the inside and 3 circles from the outside. Looking at the thousands of white setsu around them, the members of the patrol team all showed a look of despair. Only the captain was in despair. A doubt flashed in his heart. Where are they going? I have something to do today, so it's already very late when I got home, so the second one will be even later, but even if I have to stay up all night, I will finish it. But you don't need to stay up with me, you can watch it tomorrow morning. In addition, today is Monday, so I'm begging for recommendation votes. I hope everyone will support me. Chapter 1053. So, they have already entered a state of combat readiness. This timing is very good. It seems that Itachi does have the potential to become Naruto. Hyojin put down the communication scrolls sent by Itachi. Because of their private contact with the Obsidian family, both Hyojin and Itachi are more certain than anyone else that the Akatsuki organization will launch an operation in the near future. However, the source of this information is not convenient for them to explain to others. It just so happens that the Akatsuki organization has made a move against the daimyos, hitting the weak spot of the major shinobi villages. Itachi was keenly aware of this, and directly proposed a proposal to have all the shinobi villages enter a state of combat readiness, and under the push of various factors, all the Kage present agreed with almost no effort. This point alone shows that Itachi has begun to consider problems with the identity of Naruto, and is pushing for proposals that are beneficial to the villages at the Gakage meeting. As for the request on how to protect the daimyos mentioned at the end of the communication scroll, Hyojin didn't pay much attention to it, because he doesn't want to devote his limited energy to protecting the daimyos, which is of no importance to him, so he didn't give any suggestions to Itachi and decided to directly authorize him to handle this matter. After sending the reply, Hyojin rubbed his temples and closed his eyes to rest. There is no doubt that all the actions of the Akatsuki organization at this stage are probing, so he doesn't plan to be led by the nose by the Akatsuki organization, but to continue to push forward his Kekkai trap plan in an orderly manner. He is certain that the Akatsuki organization will soon reveal their true intentions, and that will be the best time for him to take action. After recovering from his thoughts, Hyojin shook his head to dispel the tiredness on his body. Bearing the burden of 10 shadow clones at a time, and 5 of them are continuously undergoing high-intensity training, even Kuroto felt a little strained. What's more, his water release body also needs to concentrate to carry out the cell fusion experiment of the yang release clone body, which consumes a lot of mental energy, far more than he expected. Fortunately, this kind of hard work wasn't in vain. In the past few days, the 5 shadow clones had been running around the cities and towns of the country of fire, country of water, country of lightning, country of hot water, and other countries around the coast. They exchanged all the money that Hyojin had earned from restoring the Forest of Death and the casino for medicinal ingredients and equipment that he needed. They even swindled some extra money. It could be said that the current Hyojin was extremely poor. The only thing he could quickly exchange for money was the ninjato sharkskin. However, after this round of looting, the medicinal ingredients and equipment he had should be enough for him to complete the development of the Yang Escape clone body and the Type 4 biological armor. In addition, the cultivation of the water escape secret technique and the development of the boiling escape blood limit boundary had also made varying degrees of progress. As it turned out, Hyojin's luck wasn't bad. Bai did indeed possess the bloodline of the Ghost Lantern clan. This was probably the result of the marriage between the Snow clan and the Ghost Lantern clan, which allowed them to have some of each other's bloodline. This also cleared the way for Hyojin's water release clone to practice the water escape secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan. Due to the thinness of his bloodline, Hyojin would find it much more difficult to practice the water escape secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan compared to the orthodox Ghost Lantern clan. However, his rich ninjutsu experience and the powerful chakra could completely make up for this disadvantage. As for the water cannon technique, it only took him 1 day to completely master it. It could be said to be godly speed. The water transformation technique took slightly longer, around 3 days. More than half of the time was spent on adapting to the liquid state of the water transformation technique. After mastering the water transformation technique, he suddenly discovered that this secret technique had great potential and was worth developing in depth. This was because this secret technique could transform the water in nature into his own power. Similar to the Kirin technique, it was a type of utilization of the power of nature. Although the water transformation technique's chakra wasn't a true immortal technique that contained the power of nature, in an area with a lot of water and mist, this secret technique was almost like a bug. As long as the user had enough chakra, not to mention dealing with ordinary ninjas, even suppressing tailed beasts would be a piece of cake. It could be said that the stronger the user, the more undefeatable the water transformation technique would be. If the user had already mastered the immortal technique and was able to activate the Sage mode to maximize the use of the water in nature, then in the endless sea of water, it could be said that the user was an existence that was undefeatable under the sixth path. He could fight, consume energy, and escape. This was probably the reason why Genjutsu was able to defeat the many experts of the Mist Clan and become the second Mizukage. Compared to the water cannon technique and the water transformation technique, the second Mizukage Genjutsu's secret technique, vaporizing danger explosion, was a whole level more difficult to practice. It wasn't that the vaporizing danger explosion technique had a high requirement for the user's ability to control the water attribute chakra, but this technique not only needed to control the water attribute chakra, but also needed to integrate another substance, oil. This oil was of course bio-oil or fat. In other words, the shadow clone couldn't practice the vaporizing danger explosion technique because the shadow clone was an imitation of chakra. It had a physical body, but it didn't have any corresponding substances. Therefore, when practicing the vaporizing danger explosion technique, Hyojin had to let the shadow clone temporarily go to the laboratory to monitor the progress of the cell fusion, while his water release body practiced in the training field. He didn't know whether it was the problem of the ratio of water to oil or something else, but in short, in order to practice the vaporizing danger explosion technique, Hyojin's water release clone consumed a lot of fat, and his whole body became thinner. But the water release clone still lacked some charm, and there was a clear difference between it and the water release clone recorded in the vaporizing danger explosion technique scroll. Looking at the water release clone that had become skinny in order to practice the vaporizing danger explosion technique, Hyojin couldn't help but sigh. This technique is really a great tool for losing weight. However, even though he had suffered a lot while practicing the vaporizing danger explosion technique, the principle of the technique gave him a lot of inspiration when he was developing the boil release blood limit. After repeatedly studying the vaporizing danger explosion technique scroll that he got from Yagura, Hyojin even began to suspect that the vaporizing danger explosion technique was a secret technique that the second Mizukage Genjutsu Mirage had developed after being inspired by the boil release blood limit in their village. At the same time, Hyojin had a vague feeling that once he mastered the ice release and boil release, as well as the various secret techniques of the Ghost Lantern clan, this water release clone would be an unbeatable existence on the sea. Last night, I stayed up until 3 p.m., but my condition was too bad, and my thoughts weren't smooth, so I didn't force myself to update. Also, I want to thank the students who gave me gifts yesterday. Thank you all. Chapter 1054. For a ninja like Kuroda, who has rich experience in developing Kekkei Genkai, the secret technique scroll recording steam danger burst power is actually equivalent to a guide for developing the Kekkei Genkai of the boiling release. Moreover, the experience of cultivating the steam explosion could naturally be used to develop the boil release. The boil release was not mysterious. It was just a product of the fusion of the water attribute chakra and the fire attribute chakra. The water attribute chakra was the main, and the fire attribute chakra was the supplementary. Because it was the fusion of the most common chakra attribute in blood limits, Hyojin had already completed the 5 blood limits, namely ice release, flame release, magnetic release, explosion release, and mist release, as well as the development of the dust release, which was an eliminated blood limit. Therefore, as soon as he started, he could roughly create the embryonic form of the boil release. Bang! Suddenly, the shadow clone in the training ground that was responsible for developing the boil release exploded into a cloud of white smoke without warning, just like many times before, and disappeared without a trace. After receiving the feedback of the shadow clone's memories and the pain of the explosion, Hyojin's head hurt. This was his daily practice of developing the boil release. The boil release was slightly different from other blood limit. It was a fusion of the 2 types of chakra that were incompatible with each other. Therefore, in terms of instability, it was comparable to the magnetic release, and in terms of danger, it was more dangerous than the dust release. This was because once the dust release chakra went berserk, the caster could hastily shape it and release the berserk dust release chakra out of the body. When Hyojin developed the dust release on the beach previously, he had destroyed a row of cliffs along the coast quite badly. As for the boil release chakra, once it left the body, it would turn into a mist and quickly envelop the caster. Therefore, as long as the boiling release chakra went berserk and went out of control, regardless of whether the caster vented it out of the body or poured it back into the body, he would die a horrible death. The shadow doppelganger's ability to control chakra was naturally far inferior to the main body. If the shadow doppelganger was used to activate the boiling escape, the probability of chakra going berserk was very high. Therefore, the shadow doppelganger's frequent explosions were unavoidable. Fortunately, every time the shadow clone imploded, Hyojin would be able to sense the reason for its failure. As time passed, the frequency at which the shadow clone imploded decreased. It could be said that after these few days of cultivation, Hyojin had more or less grasped the water escape secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan, as well as the boiling escape blood limit. The only thing he lacked was proficiency in using them on the western coastline of the Water Nation. Swish, 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 accompanied by the sound of breaking wind, a group of mist ninjas passed through the permeating water mist and arrived in front of a lonely lighthouse on the coast. After matching the secret signal, the mist ninjas in the lighthouse shouted, "Hey, why are you guys so late? It's been more than half an hour since the change of shift." A mist ninja outside the lighthouse smiled and said, "Sorry, the fog on the road is too heavy, so it took a little time." The mist ninjas in the lighthouse didn't suspect anything and directly opened the door. In an instant, the mist ninjas outside swarmed in and launched a bloody massacre on the unguarded mist ninjas in the lighthouse. In just a moment, the entire lighthouse was bathed in blood, and the mist ninjas guarding the lighthouse were all killed before they could even send a warning. Soon, a twisted whirlpool appeared out of thin air, and Obsidian walked out of the whirlpool. At this time, the mist ninjas who launched a surprise attack on their colleagues shed their camouflage and revealed their white bodies. There is no doubt that these mist ninjas who came to the lighthouse to change shifts were all disguised by White Setsu's doppelganger. On the way, they intercepted and killed the mist ninjas who really came to change shifts and interrogated them for the secret signal, and then easily broke through the mist stronghold. Casually glancing at the bodies of the mist ninjas in the lighthouse, Obsidian confirmed, This should be the last mist stronghold on this part of the coast, right? White Zetsu's doppelganger nodded. Well, after clearing this place, we can go straight in. Then let's go. After giving an order, Obsidian's figure shrank and disappeared silently in the twisted whirlpool. After receiving Obsidian's instructions, White Zetsu's doppelganger immediately turned off all the lights on the lighthouse. Not long after, Baiju's doppelgangers emerged from the raging sea one after another and stepped onto the land of the Kingdom of Water, dripping wet. As far as the eye could see, there were layers upon layers of them, densely packed together. After disembarking, with the help of the camouflage ability and the intelligence advantage of Obito's Kamui, the 10,000 White Jade's army was unimpeded along the way. It was not until they were a few dozen miles away from the hidden Mist Village that they were discovered by the Mist Village. This was under the condition that the Mist Village had accepted the 5 Kage Conference's proposal and started to prepare for war. Otherwise, the Mist Village would have to wait until the White Jade's army arrived outside the village. However, the Mist Village is one of the 5 great ninja villages. When they discovered the White Zetsu army, they immediately mobilized all the ninjas in the village and surrounded the strongholds around the Mist Village to fight against the White Zetsu army. In the Mizukage building in the Mist Village, Par the Mist Elder slammed the table and shouted, "Contact him again. No matter what method you use, you must contact 4 generations. Now the village is experiencing a great crisis of life and death. How can the Mizukage hide?" Yes, the Umbu of the Mist Village had to nod one by one. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a series of explosions came from outside the Mizukage building, followed by noisy curses and panicked warnings at the same time. The old elder in the mist's eyes turned cold, and a trace of surprise flashed through his turbid pupils. He shouted to the Umbu members around him, "What are you waiting for? Go and confirm what is happening outside." As soon as the Mist Elder's voice fell, a twisted vortex appeared in the hall, and then Obsidian walked out of the vortex and said to the Mist Elder in a playful tone, "No need to confirm, it's me." The Mist Elder's face sank and he said angrily, "It's you? You dare to come to our Mist Village. This time I will get rid of you, and wipe out the shame of 4 generations being controlled by you." After saying that, the Mist Elder no longer talked nonsense, and directly led the Umbu around him to attack Obsidian. The battle broke out in an instant and ended a moment later. After a big battle, the buildings on the ground of the Mizukage building were completely razed to the ground, and the ruins were full of the corpses of the Umbu of the Mist Village. Standing amidst the rubble, Bao Tu, who was almost unscathed, glanced at the Mist Elder who was lying on the ground in the distance, covered in blood and with a broken leg. He chuckled and said, "As expected, my previous loss wasn't due to my strength." At this time, the Mist Elder, who was lying in a pool of blood, summoned a seabird with the last of his strength and sent it away in an instant. Watching the seabird leave, Obsidian raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and he had no intention of stopping it. "I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1055. When a large number of Mist Ninjas rushed to the Mizukage building from all directions, they only saw the ruins of the building and the corpses of the elder who was in charge of the daily affairs of the village. Damn it! What should we do now? Tens of thousands of White Zetsu's army besieged the village, and the elder who was in charge of the daily affairs of the village was killed. For a while, panic and despair enveloped all the Mist Ninjas. After a while, one of the Mist Elite Jonin finally recovered from his shock and ordered, Quickly spread the news." A Mist Ninja on the side asked, To whom?" The Elite Jonin said sternly, "Spread the news to everyone, Konoha, Sand, Cloud, and Rock. In short, spread the news that we were attacked. Even if we can't contact Yondaime-sama, Yondaime-sama should be paying attention to the village in secret. After he learns about this, he will definitely rush back to take charge of the situation." Another mist ninja hesitated for a moment and said, "But the purpose of the other party sneaking in to kill the elder is probably to lure Yondaime-sama out." The elite ninja said, "Of course I understand this, but if the mist village is gone, then is there any need for the existence of the Mizukage? We chose the Mizukage to protect the village, not to be protected by the village." The group of mist ninjas no longer said anything and quickly spread the news of the attack through various channels. Looking at the panicked and disorderly colleagues in front of him, the elite jonin of the Mist Village sighed faintly. 20 years ago, the Mist Village was still a powerful clan with a lot of secret techniques, such as Ice Release, Bone Vein, Red Eye, Boiling Release, Lava Release, Ghost Lantern Clan, and so on. But looking at the entire Mist Village, there are only a few good Kekkei Genkai ninjas. Soon, all kinds of communication birds, spiritual beasts, and even communication ninjas left the Mist Village and spread in all directions. The first one to spread the news was undoubtedly the ninja bird that Elder Kirin had communicated with before his death. That ninja bird is Elder Kirin's summon beast. It is a seabird that can use wind release ninjutsu. Its flying speed is far faster than ordinary communication birds, so it didn't take long for the news to reach Mai. After learning that the Mist Village was besieged by tens of thousands of White Zetsu army, and the Mist Elder who presided over the daily affairs of the village was killed by a member of the Akatsuki organization who claimed to be Madara Uchiha, the village leaders in Mai were shocked. Prior to this, the 5 great shinobi villages have always regarded the Akatsuki as a powerful but undermanned terrorist organization. They never thought that the Akatsuki would have the ability to mobilize tens of thousands of troops. Not to mention the 4 generations of Lei and 4 generations of Kazekage, even the 3 generations of Naruto and 3 generations of Tsuchikage, the older generation of shinobi who have experienced many ninjas were caught off guard after hearing the news. Should he save them? How to save them? These 2 thorny problems were quickly placed in front of everyone. The ultimate goal of the Akatsuki organization's attack on the Mist Village is undoubtedly the 3-tailed beast inside the 4 generations of Mizukage. This point can be seen by anyone with a discerning eye, but with the Mist Village suffering such a degree of attack, even if the 4 generations of Mizukage and Yagura guessed the Akatsuki organization's plan, it is impossible for them to sit back and watch the Mist Village being destroyed. Lei of 4 generations of Lei said, "We must take action." 4 generations of Kazekage gently nodded. The Sand Crypsis has no opinion on this point, but the problem is, how many reinforcements should we send? If we send out all of our forces, what about the 9 tails and 7 tails Jinchuriki on my side? After exhaling a mouthful of smoke, Naruto gently tapped the table with the pipe in his hand. "I have always believed that the Akatsuki organization's ultimate goal is here, Mai." 3 generations of Tsuchikage gently nodded. "Even if we start to mobilize now, I'm afraid it will be too late. If they only mobilize the shinobi from Mai, it will inevitably lead to an extremely empty state in Mai, but if they mobilize the shinobi from Cloud, Rock, or Sand Crypsis, not to mention the time needed to mobilize the shinobi, just the transmission of orders and the assembling of the troops will take a lot of time. What's more, the Kage have to consider that if they mobilize too many forces from their own villages, will they become the next target of the Akatsuki organization? This has nothing to do with selfishness, but a practical problem that must be faced as a Kage. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, frowned and asked, "Are we just going to stand by and watch the Mist Village fall?" In the face of Itachi's question, all the high-level members of the village showed a thoughtful look, and the whole meeting fell into an inexplicable silence. Suddenly, 3 generations of Tsuchikage broke the silence. "We will definitely save them, but it will take time to mobilize and assemble the troops, so we can send someone first." With that, 3 generations of Inoki's eyes fell on Mai. "Hatake Kakashi, you are the only one among us who is proficient in space-time ninjutsu. Why don't you rush to the Mist Village? If the situation collapses, Then don't worry about the Mist Village, just ensure the safety of the 4 generations of Mizukage. Listening to the words of 3 generations of Tsuchikage, many people in the meeting nodded lightly. The intention of 3 generations of Tsuchikage is obvious, that is, to ensure the safety of the 4 generations of Mizukage and prevent the 3 tails from falling into the hands of the Akatsuki organization. As for the Mist Village, if they can hold on until the reinforcements of the 4 great shinobi villages are assembled, then they will go to the Mist Village. If the Mist Village can't hold on until then they can't blame anyone. Itachi was a little surprised. Sending only Kakashi to save Yonde Mizukage meant that the Mist Village's territory was basically the same as Amatsukumi's territory. Itachi simply couldn't accept the fact that the Mist Village was under the control of Amatsukumi. But just as Itachi was about to raise an objection, 3 generations of Naruto stopped him and shook his head. After the meeting, 3 generations of Naruto privately told Kakashi, who was preparing to rush to the Mist Village, "I am afraid the situation over there has already collapsed. Your task this time is not to save the Mist Village, but to save the Mizukage. We must not let the 3 tails fall into the hands of the Akatsuki organization." Kakashi's face was solemn. "When will the reinforcements arrive?" "It's hard to say." 3 generations of Tsuchikage shook his head. "The other side has 10,000 troops and several powerful members of the Akatsuki organization. If they send too many reinforcements, then my side will be empty." Kakashi said, "There are still a lot of experts in the Mist Village, Kirin, and Mei beside the Mizukage. If we join forces and the reinforcements are fast enough, the Mist Village still has hope to defend." 3 generations of Kuroto looked into the distance. "I am not worried about the Mist Village, but are my." Yesterday's second chapter, please vote. Chapter 1056. Not long after, Kakashi sat on a clay bird made for him and rushed towards the direction of the water country. At the same time, after the end of the Kage meeting, Itachi immediately sent a communication crow to inform Hyojin about the attack on the Mist Village as well as the rescue plan on the village's side. Itachi patiently waited for Hyojin's instructions. In the practice field next to the Uchiha clan's land, Sasuke, who was being taught by Shinichi on how to use the Manjikyu Sharingan, suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. Since the last time he took the initiative to challenge his brother Itachi and was defeated by Itachi's genjutsu, Sasuke slightly restrained his arrogant temperament and followed Jishuei and Shinichi to learn how to use the Manjikyu Sharingan. Pointing to the sky, Sasuke asked, "Is that the village's communication hawk?" "Yes." Shinichi glanced at it and nodded. Sasuke was a little curious. What happened these days? Why are the communication hawks coming and going so frequently? Is something big going to happen? In the past, it was rare to see a communication hawk once every 10 days or half a month, but for the past few days, the hawks' cries had been unceasing in the village. Just by raising their heads, they could see a communication hawk flying in the sky above the village. Even Sasuke, who didn't pay much attention to such things, keenly sensed that something was wrong. Shinichi didn't explain much, but urged, "Let's continue practicing, there's not much time left for you." In the practice field on the other side of the village, Haku didn't disturb Naruto, who had created 5 shadow clones and was absorbing natural energy at the same time. Instead, he stood on the top of the tree and looked at the various communication birds flying in the sky above Mai. Whoosh! At this time, Kimimaro landed beside Haku and said, "Something is wrong." Haku said, "Well, Yugo said that Mai suddenly increased the patrols, the number of patrols outside the village, and inside the village increased by 3 times, and all kinds of communication birds are flying more than 20 times more than usual. It should be the Akatsuki." After a short pause, Kimimaro looked at Naruto, who was practicing immortal techniques, and said, "He is one of the Akatsuki's targets, you need to be vigilant." Bai nodded and asked, "How's your recovery?" Kimimaro clenched his fist and said, "Don't worry, ordinary battles won't be a problem. Orochimaru Sama asked us to keep an eye on Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, so I can't let anything happen to them." Inside the Sky Fortress, staring at the cell tissue in the petri dish, Hyojin smiled as the corners of his mouth curled up. After experiencing many failures, Kuroto's cell fusion experiment finally had an in-progress result. In an accident, Kuroto discovered that the giant Tenseigan can suppress the first-generation cells and prevent them from going out of control, so he immediately mobilized the giant Tenseigan's chakra to escort the cell fusion all the way and finally harvested the embryo. The fusion is normal, cell data normal. The activity of the embryo is normal. After recording the embryo's data, Hyojin carefully pushed the petri dish into the petri dish. Phew! After finishing all this, Hyojin carefully left the petri dish and let out a long breath. Although only one case was successful, the embryo's data was perfect, and according to Hyojin's experience, the final survival rate was at least 80%, which was worth looking forward to. Caw-caw. At this time, the crow's cry came from outside the lab. Hyojin, who was used to it, let the crow in and took off the communications scroll on the crow's leg. After a quick glance, he was shocked. 10,000 white Zetsu clones? He naturally knew that the Akatsuki organization, or more accurately, Obsidian and Zetsu, had an army of about 100,000 white Zetsu, but that was during the Fourth Shinobi War in the original world, which was about 3 to 4 years later. At this stage, the Obsidian and Zetsu definitely had less than 100,000 white Zetsu soldiers, but the Akatsuki organization actually sent out 10,000 white Zetsu soldiers at once, which was obviously beyond Hyojin's expectation. "I haven't done anything recently. What happened to the Akatsuki organization?" At first, Hyojin was very sure that the Akatsuki organization's target must be the 9 tails and 7 tails in Mai, and the attack on the daimyo was just a cover, but now he wasn't so sure. Thinking of this, Hyojin sighed and immediately changed into the black cloak of Amatsuki organization and put on the water pattern mask. Even if the Akatsuki organization's attack on the Mist Village was just a feint, he still has to go to the Mist Village, because he can't contact Yagura right now, and once Yagura learns about the Mist Village's current predicament, he will definitely rush back to the Mist Village to take charge of the situation. In order to prevent Yagura from behaving strangely, Shursui didn't change Yagura's personality or other sensitive things when he used Kodo Amatsukami on Yagura. He only implanted a false memory of Yagura secretly joining Amatsukami, so in Yagura's personality, he was both a member of Amatsukami and the 4th Mizukage of the Mist Village. And with Yagura's personality, once he learns that the Mist Village is in danger, he will definitely not sit idly by. Hyojin even suspects that Yagura has already rushed back to the Mist Village. After leaving the laboratory and recalling all the shadow clones in the practice field, Suijin called Xiang Lin and Gaara to his side and said, "I'm going out for a while. Do you still remember what I told you before? Once I send a signal, you must immediately carry out my instructions, understand?" "Yes." Xiang Lin and Gaara nodded in unison. After saying that, Hyojin didn't say anything else and directly went outside the fortress and jumped into the sea. Immediately afterward, his body turned into a transparent ice mirror in midair, and then the ice mirrors flew forward one after another, like a gorgeous brilliance flying in the direction of the Mist Village. On the battlefield outside the Mist Village, whoosh, with a shrill sound, a bijou came from afar, cut through the thick mist, and smashed into the white Zetsu's camp. Boom! 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 In an instant, a huge explosion was heard, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Then a figure fell from the sky and landed on the battlefield. This figure was none other than 4 generations Mizukage Yagura. It's Mizukage-sama. 4 generations Yagura is back. Mizukage-sama didn't give up on us. He didn't give up on the village. After seeing the Mizuki's figure appear on the battlefield, the morale of the Mist ninjas immediately burst into cheers. In the distance, listening to the cheers in his ears, Obsidian, who was in the state of nothingness, said with a playful expression, "The guy who hid here and there finally came out." Today's first chapter. Seeking recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1057. The appearance of Yagura immediately reversed the situation of the Mist Village, and the destructive power of Jinchuriki on a large battlefield was fully displayed at this moment. Without much effort, the tailed beast Yagura stabilized the Mist Village's front line and began to push the front line back. Boom, 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 the continuous explosions and the flickering flames added a smell of gunpowder to the misty battlefield. Listening to the continuous explosions and the shouts of the Mist ninjas, Obsidian slightly raised the corner of his mouth and ordered the Mist squad standing on the side. "Let's do it!" Beepaw Juzo nodded with a complicated expression on his face, then leaped into the battlefield. Dry Persimmon Ghost Mermaid with a double-bladed flounder, Lotus Flower of the Kagaya clan, and Musashi with the red-eye Kekii limit also followed and joined the distant battlefield. In a foggy environment like the Country of Water, the combat power of the Mist Squad, as the original Mist Shinobi, who are proficient in the Mist assassination technique, will undoubtedly be greatly improved. Moreover, the 4 Mist Shinobi in the Mist Squad are either the Kekai Genkai of the Mist Village or the former 7 Swordsmen of the Mist Village. So, there is no doubt that they are the top ninjas in the Mist Village. If no one else intervened, the Mist Squad's strength was enough to capture the Mizuki. At this time, Zetsu leaned out from the ground and said, "There is no trace of Amatsukumi's members nearby, but the 2 guards who have been following the Mizuki are hiding in the dark." Obsidian sneered, "Keep looking! Amatsukumi must be nearby. This is their old trick, I won't fall for it again." Zetsu nodded. His judgment was the same as Obsidian's. He also felt that there must be a member of Amatsukumi around the Mizuki, but for the time being, he couldn't determine who it was. Above the sea, Hyojin, who was flying all the way, finally saw the coastline of the Country of Water in the distance, so he shook his body, removed the magic mirror ice crystal, and landed on the foggy coast. "What a heavy smell of blood!" Smelling the blood in the mist, Hyojin frowned slightly. Although he had not found any corpses, there was no doubt that a great battle had broken out nearby. However, this was normal. 10,000 white jades had landed in the Country of Water, so there must have been a lot of killings along the way. Suddenly, a group of Baiju's doppelgangers emerged from the ground. God's organization? Luckily, it's the River Lord. So it's that River Lord. When they saw the Black God's organization cloak on Hyojin's body, White Jew's doppelgangers panicked. However, when they noticed the water mask on Hyojin's face, they immediately relaxed. "What do you mean by 'fortunately, it's the master'?" Hyojin raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He really didn't expect that his water-escaped doppelganger was so weak that it couldn't even deter a dozen of Baiju's doppelgangers. However, on second thought, the identity of River Lord didn't seem to have any solid achievements. The most eye-catching battle was when he barely resisted the 3 generations Naruto and successfully escaped from the 3 generations Naruto's pursuit with Balrog. As for the other battles with the Akatsuki members, such as Kakuzu and Scorpion, there was no clear winner. No wonder the village's analysis report from God's organization didn't have a high evaluation of River Lord. He still has no achievements. Hyojin shook his head as he walked toward Baiju's doppelgangers. The reason why he chose to use the water escape clone to rescue Hidden Mist this time was firstly to test the effects of the Ghost Lantern clan's secret technique and the boiling escape blood limit boundary that he had just cultivated. Secondly, it was because the environment of the Country of Water was more suitable for the water escape clone. After all, at this moment, his fire clone no longer has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, so its combat effectiveness is greatly reduced, and the wind clone is suffering from the blood disease, so it can't withstand the destruction of the battle. The lightning clone is still recovering in the large nutrition tank, so the only clones that can fight are the Een body, the earth clone, and the water clone. Since he isn't sure where the Akatsuki's target is, he can't use the Een release, and the earth clone's combat power is limited by the amount of explosive clay, so it's not suitable for a protracted battle. Therefore, the water clone is his best choice. Soon, Hyojin ignored Baiju's doppelgangers and walked past them toward the interior of the country of water. Seeing that they were completely ignored by Hyojin, a dozen of Baiju's doppelgangers suddenly roared, "Damn it, you're just a mere Suijin, how dare you ignore us?" With that, the dozen of Baiju's doppelgangers were about to pounce on Hyojin. But just as they were about to exert force on their feet, they were surprised to find that their bodies couldn't exert any force. Then, they were even more horrified to find that their bodies began to melt. What's wrong with this fog? Boiling. Boiling release? When did he use ninjutsu? Isn't Suijin a ice release Kekai ninja? Looking at the back of Hyojin's figure as he left, the Baiju's doppelgangers fell to the ground one by one, lost consciousness in shock and horror, and finally turned into a puddle of mud in the fog. On the other side, sitting on the clay bird, Kakashi quickly crossed the sea and arrived at the country of water. Because of the fog, he couldn't judge the situation along the way, but from time to time, there were explosions on the ground, showing that the country of water is in a mess. After understanding the seriousness of the situation, he didn't get entangled in these local battlefields, but went straight to the Mist Village. Finally, before the clay bird's chakra was exhausted, Kuroto arrived about 30 kilometers away from the Mist Village. At this time, he could faintly hear the explosions and shouts on the battlefield in the distance. After sensing for a while, his face darkened. Although he is not an orthodox perceptual ninja, he can still use some superficial perceptual ninjutsu, and through perception, he can confirm that there are at least tens of thousands of chakra sources on the battlefield in the distance. In other words, there are at least tens of thousands of chakra sources on the battlefield in the distance. This is a real shinobi war. Even after experiencing the Third Shinobi War, he couldn't help but secretly sigh. Even in the Third Shinobi War, there were only a few battles with tens of thousands of shinobi between the two sides. More often than not, small groups of shinobi infiltration operations and multi-line surprise attack. After knowing that his strength may not play any role in a shinobi war of this scale, Kakashi quickly adjusted his thinking and decided to follow the instructions of the 3 generations to ensure the safety of the 4 generations Mizukage. After making up his mind, he no longer hesitated, his figure flashed and rushed to the battlefield in the distance. Yesterday's second chapter. Home in Wuhan, emotional stability, if there are no accidents, will continue to update during the Spring Festival. Everyone, pay attention to protection and keep warm, health is always the first priority. Chapter 1058. On the battlefield. Water release. Water blast wave. Accompanied by a loud rumbling sound, the ghost shark stepped on a monstrous wave and attacked the 4 generations Mizukage Yagura. Seeing the huge wave coming towards the Mist Ninja army, Yagura immediately withdrew from his tailed beast form and leaped in front of the Mist Ninja army, making a hand seal with both hands and shouted, "Water release! Water wall!" In an instant, a huge water wall with a width of hundreds of meters rose from the ground, like a city wall, protecting the Mist Ninja army. Boom! The wave and the water wall collided with each other, and a roar broke out. The raging water flowed around like a broken dam, and in the blink of an eye, the whole battlefield turned into a sparkling lake, and no land could be found. At this time, Bippa Juzo waved his sword through the mist, stepped on the water, and slashed at Yagura. At the same time, Lotus jumped out of the water and shouted to Yagura, 10 finger-piercing bullets! Whoosh! Amidst the whistling sound, 10 inconspicuous bone bullets shot towards Yagura's back. Seeing that the ones who attacked him were real Akatsuki members, and not White Zetsu's doppelganger, Yagura didn't dare to neglect, and immediately entered the tailed beast form. Raising his arm, he used his tailed beast coat to resist Bippa Juzo's attack, and at the same time, he used his chakra tail to deflect the bone bullet. Seeing that Yagura was besieged by the 4 members of the Mist Squad, Mei and Aojirai, who were hiding in the dark, couldn't hold back anymore and immediately rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, the 4 members of the Mist Squad were fighting with Yagura, Mei, and Aojirai. Among them, Bippa Juzo and Lotus joined hands to deal with Mei. They wanted to quickly get rid of the Mizukage guard, and then work together to deal with the Mizukage. The Mizukage, who was the most difficult to deal with, was temporarily handed over to the Ghost Mermaid, who was proficient in physical arts, ninjutsu, and sword arts. The Mist team originally intended to quickly deal with the 2 guards of the Mizukage, and then combine the strength of 4 people to deal with the 4 generations Mizukage, but as soon as they fought, they found that the 2 guards of the Mizukage were surprisingly difficult to deal with. Aojirai is the oldest elite jonin in the village, and Sasuke didn't think that he could defeat Aojirai so quickly. Bippa Juzo and Lotus Flower thought that they could quickly get rid of Mei Ming, but they didn't expect that not only would they fail, but they would also be suppressed by Mei Ming alone. Glancing at his companions who were all fighting hard, Ghost Shark carelessly smiled, then turned to Yagura and said, "For generations I've been wanting to fight you for a long time." Yagura looked at the double-bladed flounder in Ghost Mermaid's hand and said coldly, "Humph, today I can get a ninja blade for the village." Yagura frowned. "Even if you're called a tailless beast, you have no chance of winning against me, who is the real Jinchuriki." "Is that so?" Ghost Shark sneered. As soon as the Ghost Shark's voice faded, white spores burst out from Yagura's body and wrapped around his skinny body. In just a few breaths, Yagura's tailed beast form was absorbed by these spores, and he was forced out of the tailed beast form. Feeling the chakra on his body being quickly extracted, Yagura was shocked. When did you do this?" Ghost Shark, who was replenishing his chakra with spores, smiled. At the same time, Obito, who was in the distance, noticed the battle situation, and his figure flickered as he walked toward Yagura. Along the way, many Mist ninjas noticed Obsidian's intention and rushed forward fearlessly, trying to stop Obsidian and buy time for Yagura to get rid of the spores. However, these Mist ninjas were no match for Obsidian. Not to mention stopping Obsidian, they couldn't even slow down Obsidian. As Obsidian walked forward, he only left a path of incomplete corpses. Here's the first update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1059. Kacha, after breaking the neck of the last Mist ninja, Obsidian threw the body in his hand aside. Suddenly appearing and disappearing, his figure was like a ghost. As soon as he attacked, he showed a terrifying strength that was difficult to contend with. Along the way, he easily killed dozens of Mist ninjas who tried to stop him, leaving behind a ground full of corpses behind him. Is he a devil? Damn it. There is no chance of winning at all. I don't want to die in vain. The remaining Mist ninjas in the vicinity no longer had the fearless spirit they had just now. When they discovered that they were no match for the enemy at all, and they couldn't even delay the enemy, the fear in their hearts took control of their bodies, causing them to tremble in place. The retreat happened in an instant. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon the entire front was in turmoil. The ones who fled at first were the Mist ninjas who were facing the Obito. They were completely frightened by the tragic death of their comrades. Coupled with the Mist's policy of blood mist for many years, their sense of belonging to the village has always been at an all-time low, so in the face of a strong enemy that they can't contend with, their desire to survive surpassed everything else. And with the spread of panic, some Mist ninjas who didn't know what happened also began to flee subconsciously. Seeing the entire front of the mist was in turmoil, Obsidian didn't stop, and the corners of his mouth under the vortex mask rose slightly. After years of fighting against Amatsukami, he has now reached a very high level of attainment in taijutsu, pupil techniques, and ninjutsu. Previously, many of the mist ninjas whose average strength reached the level of Chunin couldn't even resist a single blow from him. Yagura, who was temporarily trapped by the spore technique, was shocked and furious as he looked at the approaching Obito who was coming at him with a destructive force. In particular, Masadu's unparalleled ferocity made him, who had been controlled by Masadu for a long time, instinctively feel a deep sense of dread and even a trace of fear. In just a few breaths, Obsidian crossed a large battlefield and came to Yagura. "Your fate has been decided, resistance is meaningless. You damn bastard!" The combination of old and new hatred caused Yagura to lose control of his emotions, and a huge amount of tailed beast chakra was released from his body. However, the white spores that entangled him didn't disappear because of this. On the contrary, as the tailed beast's chakra skyrocketed, these white spores also expanded and accelerated the absorption of chakra. "Be my chess piece obediently." Obsidian contemptuously looked at Yagura, who was trying to break free from the shackles of the spore technique, and the Manjikyu Sharingan under the vortex mask shone with a strange brilliance. In an instant, a twisting vortex appeared on Yagura's body. Feeling the feeling of his body being torn apart, Yagura was shocked. He struggled even more intensely, and the tailed beast chakra on his body expanded at a visible speed. In the distance, seeing Yagura in danger, Mei, who was shocked by the shockwave just now, was also shocked. She immediately rushed to help Yagura, but at this time, Bippa Juzo and Lotus stopped her from the left and right. Bippa Juzo said lightly, "Give up!" Mei gritted her teeth. "You are all sinners of the Mist Village." On the other side, Aojirai was also in the same situation. She was entangled by Kurigaku and couldn't quickly get close to Yagura. Whoosh! At this moment, a kunai broke through the wind and nailed the ground at Yagura's feet. Then, a silhouette appeared and landed beside Kuwubian. This person was none other than Kakashi, who received the news and came to support. After flashing over, Kakashi immediately reached out and grabbed Yagura, and once again used the Flying Thunder God technique to help Yagura get rid of Obsidian's divine power. Kakashi, seeing that it was Kakashi who saved Yagura, Obsidian was a little surprised. On the other hand, Kakashi immediately used the Chidori, and attacked the spores that were binding Yagura. Sizzle, under the attack of the Chidori, the spores that were binding Yagura quickly fell off, and then quietly sneaked into the ground and disappeared without a trace. Huff, huff! Yagura, who was freed, immediately squatted on the ground and gasped for breath. Kakashi quickly asked, "Mizukage, are you okay?" Yagura said with an embarrassed expression, "I was careless. Just now, in order to break free from the shackles of the spore technique, not only did Kuroto explode his chakra, but also the three-tailed chakra in his body. He thought that so many chakra would be enough to burst those spores and get rid of the shackles. But he didn't expect that not only did he not get rid of the shackles, but all the chakra in his body was absorbed by the spores. Although he got rid of the shackles, he was weak and almost lost the ability to fight. Whoosh! At this time, Mei Aojirai and a dozen mist ninjas scattered around all used the body flicker technique and gathered around Yagura. However, at this moment the entire battle line has collapsed, and the other mist ninjas on the battlefield have fled. In the blink of an eye, only Yagura, Kakashi, Mei Aojirai, and more than a dozen mist ninjas around him were left on the huge battlefield. Looking at the thousands of white Zetsu clones around him, the illusory Obito, Bippa Juzo who was carrying a giant sword, Dried Ogre who was standing or squatting, and the other Akatsuki members who were standing or squatting, Kakashi had a solemn expression on his face. At this moment they are already surrounded, and the mist ninjas have just collapsed, and the reinforcements of the other 4 villages are still far away. Even with the Flying Thunder God technique, Kakashi doesn't have the ability to rescue all the Mist Ninjas. Mei, who is very clear about the situation, said resolutely, "Kakashi, I and the others will hold the Akatsuki, you take Mizukage-sama to break out." Aojirai nodded and agreed. "If only Mizukage-sama, we may be able to break out of the encirclement." Yagura said, "I am Mizukage-sama, how can I abandon you and run away?" The other Mist Ninjas tried to persuade him. "Mizukage-sama, you can only avenge us if you are alive," Kakashi said solemnly. "Mizukage-sama, you must not fall into the hands of the Akatsuki, this is related to the safety of the entire shinobi world." Listening to the conversation of several people in the encirclement, Obsidian sneered coldly. "Kakashi, you can't change anything." Kakashi turned his head and looked at Obsidian with a complicated expression. At this moment there was a sudden noise in the distance. Everyone looked towards the direction of the noise and saw a figure slowly walking out of the fog, and all the white Zetsu clones that rushed towards the figure were cut in half by a fat black shadow. Yesterday's second chapter. Asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1060. I wish everyone a happy year of the rat, a harmonious and beautiful year of reunion. During this special period of time, everyone must pay attention to the protection of themselves and their families. Try not to go out if you can. Moreover, this time of the year is a test of one's immune system, so pay attention to keeping warm. Don't let yourself catch a cold, and don't let yourself be too tired, which will cause your immune system to decline. Here, I wish everyone good health and no illnesses or disasters. In addition, I would like to thank those who are still on the front line on New Year's Eve. I firmly believe that everything will get better. Come on, China. Come on, Wuhan. The updates will not stop during the new year. It's just that due to the impact, my mood is a little unstable, and my train of thought is not smooth. I hope everyone can understand. Finally, I beg for monthly votes. I beg for recommendation votes. I beg for rewards. Thank you, everyone. The world of Naruto in the eyes of reincarnation wishes everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1061. Kakashi's pupils suddenly shrank. He couldn't imagine who would dare to step into the battlefield alone and face thousands of enemies at a time when everyone was fleeing in all directions and trying their best to get away from the battlefield. The Mist Ninjas around Yagura were also shocked to see this scene. Not to mention the ordinary Mist Ninjas, even Mei's beautiful face was full of surprise. Only Yagura remained indifferent because he firmly believed that the organization would not sit idly by and do nothing about the fall of the Mist Village. Compared to the others, Qing, who had a white eye, was paying attention to the fat figure that was flying around in the air with an agility that did not match its body size at all. She said in astonishment, "That's the water and oil clone of second generation's secret technique, danger vaporization explosion." In an instant, the eyes of all the Mist Ninjas focused on the fat figure. Before this, everyone had already sensed that the fat figure flying around in the air and killing White Zetsu's doppelgangers was exactly the same as chakra on the figure walking out of the mist. Some of the more experienced Mist Ninjas judged that the fat figure should be something similar to a shadow clone, but no one expected that it turned out to be a water and oil clone created by Second Sama's secret technique steam explosion might. On the Akatsuki's side, Bippa Juzo, who was carrying a large beheading knife, frowned. "At this time, there are still people coming to die?" Ghost Shark laughed. "There shouldn't be such an idiot in the mist, right?" After seeing the figure gradually walking out of the mist, the red-eyed Musashi's expression froze. "Not good, it's a member of Amatsukami, it seems to be Amatsukami." Lotus grinned. Tsukami? Just him alone? Then there's nothing to be afraid of. On the other side, Zetsu poked his body out of the ground and said to Obsidian, "It's Tsukami of Amatsukami." Humph, finally! After a light snort, Obsidian said mockingly, "But why did Amatsukami send Tsukami? Is he a bait?" According to the evaluation of the Akatsuki, the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, is the strongest person in the shinobi world, and the two members of Amatsukami, Kazekage, Xidagarba, and Kirin are also strong enough to fight on their own. Only Suijin is evaluated as an elite jonin, which means that he can be captured. Zetsu shook his head. "I've already confirmed that there are no other members of Amatsukami in the area except for Tsukage. As for the special clone besides Tsukage, it seems to be the water clone of the Mist Village's second Mizukage's famous technique, Steaming Danger Explosion." The masked man looked away and said lightly, "I'm not interested in the River Master, just kill him." Without saying anything else, he immediately gave the order to the doppelgangers of Amatsukami. In an instant, groups of white Zetsu doppelgangers walked out of the formation surrounding Yagura. There were thousands of them, and they roared as they pounced towards the figure in the fog. In the mist. "That's all, in the face of thousands of doppelgangers of Amatsukami," Hyojin chuckled. Not only did he not retreat, but he also increased his speed to meet them. After giving the order to kill Tsukami, Obsidian didn't pay any more attention to Amatsukami. After all, it's just Tsukami, it's not worth his energy. So, he locked his eyes on Kakashi and Yagura and said mockingly, "Mizukage-sama, aren't you going to escape this time? Oh, by the way, the Mist Village is right behind you, you have nowhere to escape." Damn it! Being provoked by Obsidian, Yagura suddenly became angry. Kakashi quickly said, "Mizukage-sama, don't fall into his trap. He is worried that we will break out of the encirclement, so he deliberately said that." Obsidian shrugged. "Is that so?" At this time, Kakashi's face suddenly stiffened. Using the corner of his eye, he glanced at the sword of fetters that he had placed in advance, only to find that the sword of fetters was wrapped by a group of white spores gushing out of the ground, and as it was completely wrapped by the white spores, the spatial coordinates on the sword of fetters also disappeared from his perception. Not only that one, but almost all the swords of fetters that he had placed in the vicinity in advance also disappeared at this moment. Obsidian smiled. "Have you noticed? Not only the 5 great shinobi villages have been studying how to deal with Obsidian's Kamui, but Obsidian has also been studying how to deal with Kakashi's Flying Thunder God technique. And the key to dealing with the Flying Thunder God technique is undoubtedly to eliminate the Flying Thunder God technique. Therefore, Obsidian used a special kind of spores to swallow and seal all the Flying Thunder God technique engraved with Flying Thunder God technique within a few dozen miles around the battlefield, so as to greatly weaken Kakashi's mobility. And the chakra consumption of Flying Thunder God technique is related to the distance and the amount of chakra carried. Long-distance teleportation was already a huge burden for Kakashi, not to mention bringing along Yagura, who was the Jinchuriki of the 3 tails, for such a long-distance teleportation. Last time, if it weren't for Hyojin temporarily replenishing a large amount of high-intensity Tenseigan chakra for Kakashi, it would have been impossible for Kakashi to rescue Naruto, who was kidnapped by the Akatsuki organization and brought to the Land of Grass through long-distance space shuttle. Realizing this, Kakashi's face became more and more solemn, and while thinking about the tactics to break out of the encirclement, he tried his best to perceive the Flying Thunder God technique that is farther away. Suddenly, Kakashi unexpectedly found that there was a strange coordinate that responded to his perception. "What is that place? I have never placed a Flying Thunder God technique in that place." The strange coordinate was far and near, giving Kakashi a feeling that it was far away, but also close in front of him, making him a little confused. Obsidian said, "Kakashi, either get out of here or die here." As soon as Obsidian's voice fell, The 4 people of the Mist team were eager to try, waiting for Obsidian's order to launch the final attack on Yagura and the others in the encirclement. Boom! At this moment, a huge explosion came from not far away. Everyone immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw that the battlefield over there was already a mess. After the smoke dissipated, the ground was densely covered with broken arms and legs of the White Setsu's doppelgangers. In the gradually dissipating smoke, Tenseigan killed all the White Setsu's doppelgangers along the way, and all the White Setsu's doppelgangers that pounced on him along the way were quickly dealt with by him like cutting melons and vegetables. The degree of ferocity was even more than the scene of Obsidian killing the Mist Ninja before. In just the blink of an eye, there were not many White Setsu's doppelgangers that besieged him. Not to mention Obsidian and the Mist team, even Kakashi, Yagura and the others who were trapped in the encirclement were stunned when they saw this scene of one person fighting against an entire army. First update: I wish everyone a happy New Year's Day. Being intimidated by the River Lord's power, coupled with the fact that the River Lord took the initiative to step into the encirclement of the army, not only did the Baiju clones not come forward to stop him, but they even made way for him. And so, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Tenseigan casually strolled to Yagura's side. Observing Yagura with the Byakugan, he found that Yagura only had serious chakra consumption and wasn't injured, so he took out a scroll from the ninja bag on his waist and threw it to Kakashi. Kakashi, who did not understand, took the scroll. After opening it, he suddenly understood. The scroll that Hyojin threw to Kakashi briefly described his analysis of Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan technique Kamui, as well as the Sword of Fetters that he secretly left in the Kamui space. Therefore, after reading the scroll, Kakashi immediately understood where the strange coordinates he sensed just now came from, and his eyes unconsciously looked at Obsidian. There is no doubt that Obsidian himself is the anchor point of the overlap between the Kamui space and the shinobi world. At this moment, because Obsidian is in the state of nihility, it belongs to the superposition state of the Kamui space and the shinobi world at the same time, so the Kamui space and the shinobi world are connected at this moment. Other people can't feel this connection, even Hyojin is no exception, but Kakashi, who has the Sword of Fetters in the Kamui space, is different. With the help of the Sword of Fetters, not only can Kakashi feel the existence of the Kamui space, but he can also use the Flying Thunder God technique to secretly sneak into Obsidian's Kamui space when Obsidian is in the state of nihility or when he uses the Kamui space. At this time, Hyojin said, "I'll go outside, you go inside." Kakashi looked at Hyojin meaningfully and nodded. From this scroll, Kakashi also obtained another piece of information, that is, the Kirin sent by the Mist to participate in the Chunin exam is not a Mist ninja, but a member of Amatsukami. In other words, there is some kind of cooperation between the Mist and Amatsukami that the other 4 villages don't know about. What is written in that scroll? What the hell is Amatsukami doing? Seeing Kakashi looking at him inexplicably after reading the scroll thrown by Tenseigan, Obsidian instinctively felt that something was wrong. At this time, Zetsu confirmed again, "My clone has confirmed that there is no trace of other members of Amatsukami in the vicinity of the battlefield, at least not within 20 kilometers." Obsidian nodded, then no longer hesitated, and immediately ordered, "Attack, except for the 4 generations Mizukage, kill everyone else." Following Obsidian's order, the Mist Squad and thousands of White Zetsu troops on the battlefield immediately launched an attack. Mei Aojirai and a dozen other Mist ninjas covered Yagura to break out of the encirclement, while Hyojin and Kakashi tacitly rushed towards Obsidian. "Hey!" Obsidian grinned, and immediately aimed at Hyojin's left arm with the Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket. In an instant, a twisting vortex appeared on Hyojin's left arm. This vortex did not spread to Hyojin's whole body as usual, but quickly twisted at a fixed size. Obsidian, who has learned from his mistakes, did not intend to throw Suijin's entire body into the Kamui space, but to use the Kamui's ability to distort space to instantly tear off Suijin's arm and disintegrate the opponent's ability to form hand seals. The activation speed of the Kamui was related to the size of the object distorted by the Kamui. If it was only a palm-sized area, with Obsidian's current eyesight, he could almost complete it in an instant. So, before Kakashi on the side could react, Hyojin's entire left arm had been completely distorted. In the next moment, Suijin's entire arm disappeared in the twisting vortex. The whole process took less than a second, but the wound on his shoulder was not bloody as everyone expected. Instead, it was dripping with pure water droplets. Swoosh! At the same time, Kakashi, who was rushing to Obsidian with Hyojin, flashed and disappeared into thin air. Here's the second update. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes on the first day of the new year. Also, thank you to the students who have tipped in the past 2 days. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Chapter 1063. The Ghost Lantern Clan's Water Transformation Technique? But isn't this guy from the Snow Clan? Seeing that what was splattering out from the wound on Hyojin's left arm wasn't blood, but clear water droplets, the Obsidian was slightly puzzled. As the mastermind who had secretly manipulated the Mizukage, his understanding of the Mist Village's various bloodline limits, forbidden techniques, and secret techniques was even deeper than Hyojin's. Therefore, he was able to recognize the signature secret technique of the Ghost Lantern Clan, the water transformation technique, at a glance. Because of this, he was puzzled about the identity of the Suijin. Because he was very clear that the water transformation technique, the signature secret technique of the Ghost Lantern Clan, was slightly different from the vaporization explosion technique that the second Mizukage had personally developed. Vaporization explosion technique had extremely high requirements for the caster, and apart from the second Mizukage, no one else in the Mist Village had mastered it. However, it was still doubtful whether this forbidden technique required the bloodline of the Ghost Lantern Clan, because the younger generation of the Ghost Lantern Clan also couldn't learn this technique. But water transformation technique was different. Without the bloodline of the Ghost Lantern Clan, it was impossible to master this secret technique. At the same time, the Obsidian's gaze unconsciously shifted to the place where Kakashi disappeared. There was no doubt that Kakashi had used the Flying Thunder God technique, while he was activating Holy Might. However, he was very sure that all the Flying Thunder God technique left by Kakashi within a few dozen miles had been sealed by Ju's spores. Therefore, he was a little puzzled as to where exactly did Kakashi go after using the Flying Thunder God technique. Hyojin, who was pouncing towards the Obsidian, had a solemn expression on his face. When Obsidian started to use Shun Wei cautiously, Obsidian's threat skyrocketed. For example, just now, Obsidian was like Kakashi in the original dimension. He directly used Shun Wei to tear his target apart from a distance. In almost an instant, he tore off Hyojin's left arm. One must know that Kakashi, who only had one Manjikyu Sharingan in the original spacetime, could already use the power of space to tear apart all targets within his sight, including the Outer Path demon image. Moreover, Kamui was undoubtedly faster and sharper in the hands of the original Obsidian. With this kind of casting speed, not to mention ordinary ninjas, even Hyojin would not be able to dodge. If it wasn't for Hyojin's water transformation technique, which allowed him to liquefy his left arm in time, his left arm would have been torn apart by the Obsidian's divinity's might. Looking back again, Hyojin confirmed the situation of Yagura. On the other side, Mei Aojirai, and more than a dozen mist ninjas were covering Yagura to break out of the Mist Village. The 4 members of the Mist Squad of the Akatsuki organization have already rushed forward and fought with Mei and Aojirai. A large number of White Setsu's doppelgangers also besieged the Mist ninjas from all directions. As the strongest mist ninjas of 4 generations, Mizuki Jigura, because of Zetsu's Spore Jutsu, Chakra was almost exhausted, so he didn't have any combat power for a while. Seeing the mist ninjas around him falling one by one under the siege of the White Setsu's doppelgangers, Yagura's situation became more and more dangerous. At this moment, a team of mist ninjas came from the Mist Village, led by Genzen and Choshiro. As the new generation of the Mist Village, they were full of spirit, leading a large number of Umbu to rescue Yagura, who was in danger. Seeing this scene, Hyojin immediately retracted his gaze and said, "Mizuki is finally reliable for once." Although it is not clear whether Mizuki wanted to rescue the Mizuki, or whether he was eyeing the 2 katanas in the hands of the Mist Squad, Juzo and Kirigakure, but his timely appearance undoubtedly relieved Kuroto of his worries and allowed him to concentrate on dealing with the Obito. Retracting his scattered thoughts, Hyojin focused all his attention on Obsidian. Just now, while Obsidian was using Kamui, Kakashi used Flying Thunder God technique. If there is no accident at this moment, Kakashi should have quietly sneaked into Obsidian's Kamui space. Therefore, Hyojin doesn't need to do too much now, as long as he forces Obsidian to use Kamui again, so that the Kamui space can be connected with the Shinobi world. He can cooperate with Kakashi to deal with Obsidian. With this thought in mind, he waved his hand and summoned the water and oil doppelganger that was harvesting White Zetsu's doppelganger in the distance. After this battle, the temperature of his water and oil doppelganger has risen again, and it can carry out a new round of explosion. After receiving Hyojin's instructions, the water and oil doppelganger with the ability to fly swelled, and then flew from a distance like a cannonball, quickly approaching Obsidian's side. Ha! Hyojin didn't hesitate in the slightest and decisively launched the explosion. Boom! In an instant, the expanded water and oil doppelganger exploded with a loud bang. And almost at the same time as Hyojin's water and oil doppelganger exploded, a cyan phantom was projected from Obsidian's body, and then quickly enveloped Obsidian. There is no doubt that Obsidian launched Susanoo. Although the explosive power of the water and oil doppelganger is very strong, it can't shake the defense of Susanoo, not to mention that Obsidian has been implanted with the first-generation cells, and his Susanoo is far stronger than the ordinary kaleidoscope Uchiha. As a result, after the smoke and dust in the sky dissipated, Obsidian's cyan Susanoo was motionless, and Obsidian, who was under the protection of Susanoo, watched Hyojin, who was pouncing on him, as if he was laughing silently. Hyojin, who was pouncing on Obsidian, did not stop. After releasing the water transformation technique, he formed a seal with his hands, and then quickly flashed to the front of Obsidian's Susanoo. He thrust out his right arm, and a huge, sharp ice thorn instantly condensed on his right arm. Under the Susanoo, the corners of Obsidian's mouth raised slightly. Even a forbidden technique like vaporizing danger explosion can't do it. Do you still expect ice escape to break my Susanoo? Kacha! Before Obsidian's voice fell, the ice thorn in Hyojin's right hand hit Obsidian's Susanoo, and a shattering sound came out. This is impossible. The face of Obsidian, who was full of ridicule, changed because he was shocked to find that it was not the opponent's ice thorn that broke, but his Susanoo. And Hyojin, who broke through the Susanoo, did not lose momentum, and went straight to Obsidian under the Susanoo. In horror, as Hyojin expected, Obsidian subconsciously used Holy Might. In an instant the two passed through each other. At the moment of crossing each other, Hyojin smiled. He had forced Obsidian to use Holy Might, and moved part of his body into the Holy Might space. With Kakashi's reaction speed, Obsidian was either dead or injured. After passing through, Hyojin immediately looked back and immediately frowned, because Obsidian did not seem to be attacked from the Holy Might space. And Obsidian jumped back, slightly distancing himself from Hyojin, and said, "What do you seem to be looking forward to?" "I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1064. Kakashi actually dropped the ball? Was it because he didn't have time to react just now, or did he not enter the godly might space at all? Hyojin's face darkened as he thought about all kinds of possibilities. Logically speaking, with Kakashi's reflexes and the fact that he had explained the secret of Obsidian's godly might space to Kakashi through the scroll, there was no reason for him to fail just now. However, Kakashi did not cooperate with him in the godly might space as promised, which made him a little puzzled. Obsidian, who had reactivated Susanoo, was looking at the fog around him. When he looked carefully, he quickly found that the fog around him was quietly corroding his Susanoo, so he came to a sudden realization. So it's boil release. Obviously, Suijin didn't just rely on ice release to break through his Susanoo just now. He first used the explosion of the water and oil clone of vaporizing explosion might to create steam to block my vision, and then used the steam to quietly cast boil release. Then, he used himself as bait and used ice release to attract my attention, making me ignore the boiling release that was corroding my Susanoo, so I couldn't notice the decline of the Susanoo's defense in time. In just an instant, Suijin's tactic was completely seen through by Obsidian. Suijin had used vaporizing explosion might boil release, ice release, which was a forbidden technique, and 2 blood limit boundaries to break through his Susanoo in one fell swoop. These guys from Amatsukami are really annoying as expected. After a pause, Obsidian frowned again. But he should know that even if he can break through my Susanoo, ordinary ice release can't hurt me, right? Almost subconsciously, Obsidian thought of a possibility. At this moment, Hyojin ignored the exhaustion caused by the explosion of the water and oil clone, and once again cooperated with the water and oil clone, fiercely pouncing on Obsidian. He wanted to verify whether Kakashi just didn't react, or if there was some other accident. If it was just that he didn't react, then everything would be fine, but if there was something else, then things would be troublesome. Boom! The water and oil doppelganger with a comical appearance collided with the earthy Susanoo from the front. At the same time, a loud noise burst out. It also collided with the earthy Susanoo, causing it to stagger. Taking this opportunity, Hyojin's figure flashed and went behind Obsidian's Susanoo, and then he pressed his hands to the ground and activated the ice release ninjutsu. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, ice spikes protruded from the ground of the Susanoo without warning. The diameter of these ice spikes was as thick as a normal person's arm. Not only was the tip emitting cold air, but it was also glowing with a chilling light that made one's heart palpitate. However, Obsidian, who was prepared, immediately jumped, avoiding the protruding icicles on the ground, and then in midair, he stretched out his right arm toward Hyojin. Clatter wooden stakes quickly stretched out from Obsidian's right arm, penetrating the Susanoo without any hindrance, and then entangling Hyojin's hands on the ground like a spirit snake. Almost at the same time, Obsidian's Susanoo also threw a shuriken at Hyojin. Because every time the water and oil clone self-destructed, Hyojin, as the main body, would fall into a short period of fatigue, so he could not avoid Obsidian's would release in time. He had to temporarily use the water transformation technique to completely turn himself into a stream of water and break free from the shackles of the wood release. But Hyojin did not expect that Obsidian would also shoot a shuriken at the same time. One must know that the shuriken had the ability to transfer a large range of space. If he was hit, even if he was in a liquid state, it was likely that he would be transferred to the shuriken space. And in a liquid state, his mobility was greatly reduced, so he could not completely dodge the attack of Obsidian's shuriken. So he, who could not avoid it, made up his mind, and instead of retreating, he invaded the inside of Obsidian's Susanoo in the form of a stream of water from the ground. In Hyojin's view, the inside of Obsidian's Susanoo was precisely the blind spot that Obsidian's shuriken could not attack. So as soon as he sneaked into the Susanoo, He immediately removed the liquid state of his upper body and stretched out 2 fingers toward Obsidian, who was supported in midair by the wood release, and launched the secret technique Water Iron Cannon technique. Seeing that Hyojin used the water transformation technique to invade the inside of his Susanoo, Obsidian also made up his mind and immediately urged his Susanoo to shoot a shuriken at himself. Damn it! Oh no! Hyojin's water iron cannon technique and Obsidian's shuriken were launched almost at the same time. Both sides only noticed each other's killer move after launching their own killer move. For a while, they had no time to respond, and their faces showed a look of surprise. Xiao soon, one of the 2 water iron cannon technique launched by Hyojin shot through Obsidian's shoulder blade, while the other grazed Obsidian's cheek, and with a crack, it cut the whirlpool mask on Obsidian's face. At the same time, the entire Susanoo, as well as Obsidian and Hyojin inside, were transferred into the shuriken space by the shuriken. Clang clang clang. Before Hyojin could recover from the inappropriate spacetime stripping, he heard a rapid and sharp sound of metal clashing in his ears. Then he looked up and found that Kakashi was fighting with Hiroko's human puppet not far away. Sasori stood on the side of the battlefield, looking at him with a faint smile. At this moment, Hyojin finally understood why Kakashi did not cooperate with him. It turned out that Obsidian had arranged for Sasori to stay in the shuriken space, specifically to deal with enemies who sneak into the shuriken space. Clang! At this time, the broken mask on Obsidian's face fell to the ground, making a crisp sound. Kakashi, who noticed the strangeness here, quickly looked over, and when he saw Obsidian's face full of whirlpool-shaped scars, and the familiar pair of Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets, he exclaimed, "Obsidian!" Obsidian said coldly, "TCH, why are you acting so surprised? Didn't you notice it a long time ago?" Kakashi's figure flickered, got rid of the entanglement of Hiroko's human puppet, flashed in front of Obsidian, and confirmed with a complicated look, "Really? Is it really you?" Here's the second update. Thank you to all the students who donated today. Thank you everyone. It's almost Monday, and the list will be updated. Please recommend and support it. It's no trouble at all, thank you. Chapter 1065. As Obsidian said, Kakashi had already detected Obsidian's identity from various information and details, but he couldn't believe it, or rather, he didn't want to believe that Obsidian, the hero of the village, was the one who provoked the Nine Tails Rebellion, killed 4 generations of Naruto, and countless Mai ninjas, and controlled the Akatsuki organization to threaten the entire shinobi world. But as the mask on Obsidian's face shattered, all the hope in Kakashi's heart was shattered at this moment. Why? Even though there were thousands of words in his heart, after opening his mouth, Kakashi could only spit out 3 words in pain. The indifferent face of Obsidian instantly became distorted after hearing these words. Why? You clearly promised me that you would protect Rin, why did she die? Like Kakashi, Obsidian also had a why in his heart all these years, a question that he couldn't let go of no matter what. Hearing Obsidian mention Rin, in an instant, the scene of Rin's death rushed to Kakashi like a tidal wave. It's my fault, I didn't protect her well. He seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and his whole body staggered back 2 steps, his face was lost. At this time, Hyojin on the side removed the water transformation technique, and returned to his normal form. He didn't expect the current situation, he didn't expect Obsidian to make so many targeted arrangements, he didn't hesitate to reveal the secret of his own Kamui, and place Sasori in the Kamui space in advance. In this way, the situation became complicated. Thus, he quietly observed Kakashi and Obito while secretly trying to adapt to the discomfort caused by the Shuriken-S spacetime stripping and the weakness caused by the water and oil clone's self-destruction. Sasori also led the Haruhu puppet and slowly walked over from a distance. He was also very interested in the reunion between Obsidian and Kakashi, so he did not rush to interrupt them. Instead, he stopped at the side and watched with great interest. At this time, Obsidian said coldly, "It's you. It's you who didn't abide by our agreement and didn't protect Lin." Kakashi looked like he was in pain. I am indeed an incompetent loser, but this is not a reason for you to control 9 tails to attack the village, hurt the teacher, and hurt the innocent villagers." The Obsidian fell silent. Kakashi continued, "If you want to take revenge and vent, you can come to me. Even if you kill me, I won't have any complaints. But don't make the same mistake again. Turn back, Obsidian." Obsidian shook his head and muttered to himself, "I don't care about this hellish ninja world anymore. You don't care anymore?" Kakashi's face was full of surprise. Obsidian suddenly smiled. "Kakashi, I want to create a world with Lin. In that world there will be no war, no killing, and no pain," Kakashi said. "Lin is already dead. Obsidian, don't be stupid, accept the reality." "You are the stupid one." After a pause, Obsidian opened his arms. "You are small and incompetent, you don't understand the truth of this ninja world at all. I am the one who can really bring peace to the ninja world." Kakashi clenched the kunai in his hand. "In my heart, you will always be that kind person. I don't understand why you became like this today, but I will stop you no matter what." "Stop me?" With a light snort, Obsidian glanced at the half-sleeve of Naruto on Kakashi's left shoulder and said contemptuously, "You can't even compete with that idiot Kuroto, and you can't even be Naruto. What makes you think you can stop me?" Hyojin, who was secretly thinking about countermeasures, had a black face and said, "What does it have to do with me?" Kakashi shook his head and said, "Kuroto is better than me. He is more suitable to be Naruto than me. As you said, I am just a failure who can't even protect my companions." Obsidian was a little surprised. "You arrogant fool, you actually admit that you are not as good as that guy." Hyojin also glanced at Kakashi and immediately said with certainty, "Well, this must be Kakashi's true words, it must be." Kakashi said, "Obsidian, Kuroto and I are working hard for peace. You may not know how much effort Kuroto has made in bridging the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village. If it weren't for him, the Uchiha clan would probably have been destroyed. Come back, we are all your partners, we can work together." Obsidian sneered carelessly, "I don't care about the life and death of the Uchiha clan in the village at all. Maybe someday I will kill those guys myself. And if I tell you that idiot Kuroto is my spy in the village, how would you feel?" "What did you say?" Kakashi's eyes were cold. Obsidian smiled playfully and said, "Why do you think I know so much information about the village? How can I accurately attack any target I want to attack?" Looking at Kakashi's surprised face, Obsidian enjoyed it very much. Naturally, Hyojin did not provide him with any effective information, but this did not prevent him from casually driving a wedge between Kakashi, the representative of Naruto, and Hyojin, the fifth Naruto. After a short surprise, Kakashi shook his head and said calmly, "Even if Kuroto really cooperates with you, his purpose should be to inquire about your Akatsuki organization." Obsidian frowned and said, "You trust him so much?" Kakashi nodded gently. "He is different from me. I am a waste who does not know how to cherish my companions, can't fulfill the promise, and can't protect Lin. And he is like you before, a person who really knows how to cherish his companions and loves the village, so I trust him unconditionally." On the side, Hyojin was a little startled when he heard this. He did not expect that Obsidian would reveal their private contact so casually, nor did he expect that Kakashi would trust him to this extent. "Hey, it seems that I, Naruto, am more competent than I thought." There is no doubt that even Hyojin himself did not realize that his performance in dealing with the Uchiha clan's rebellion has made many people look at him in a new light. It can be said that it is his series of actions that allowed the village to retain the Uchiha clan and get out of the quagmire of civil strife. Now, the Uchiha clan alone has 3 Manjikyu Sharingan-level combat power, coupled with the strength of Naruto's faction, making Mai the strongest village among the 5 great shinobi villages. Hearing Kakashi say that he unconditionally trusts Hyojin, Obsidian was silent for a moment, then said coldly, "Kakashi, you have changed. Here is the first update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, I would like to thank AO_Lee_give classmates Alliance Master for tipping, thank you." Chapter 1066. Staring at Kakashi, Obsidian said, "You've changed. In the past, you only believed in yourself and adhered to the rules of the ninja, but now you know how to trust others. That's because I understand what you said at the beginning. Those who don't cherish their companions are worse than trash." After a pause, Kakashi also stared at Obsidian and said, "Obsidian, I know you haven't changed. You are still the gentle, kind, and longing for Naruto Obsidian." Obsidian snorted coldly and said, "This is just your wishful thinking." Kakashi immediately asked, "Then why didn't you do it when you clearly had several opportunities to kill me before?" After a moment of silence, Obsidian replied, "Don't misunderstand, I just want you, trash, to witness the new world without war and sorrow that I've built." Then, without waiting for Kakashi to answer, Obsidian said, "Since you are in the way, then I can only kill you." Sigh. After a faint sigh, Kakashi raised the kunai in his hand and said, "Obsidian, for the village, for the shinobi world, I must stop you." Obsidian took out his chain and said, "If you can do it, then come and try." Seeing that Obsidian and Kakashi were about to make a move, Sasori, who had been silent all this time, grinned at Hyojin and said, "Suijin, it's time to settle our previous accounts." Sasori can be said to be the member of the entire Akatsuki organization who has fought with Hyojin's water release the most. Although he did not suffer any losses from the Suijin, he was defeated by the Suijin several times. Even because the Suijin framed him at the door of the gold exchange, he was chased by the 3 generations Naruto for no reason. So when he saw the Suijin, he was angry. "Tisk, bad luck." Hyojin snorted and immediately glanced at the Hirako puppet standing next to Sasori. Unlike the 3 generations Kazekage puppet made by Sasori, the Hirako puppet looks more lifelike, and the mechanical parts on the puppet are obviously a lot less. It can be seen that Sasori's puppet-making technology has made earth-shaking progress in the Akatsuki organization. And what is even more noteworthy is that the Hirako puppet's face, limbs, and various joints are inlaid with conspicuous black stick. At first glance, it looks like Nagato's 6 paths of pain. At this time, Obsidian reminded Sasori, "Don't be careless, this Suijin is just as despicable and cunning as the other members of Amatsukami. Not only does he have the ice release bloodline limit, but he also has the boiling release bloodline limit, as well as the various water release secret techniques of the Hidden Fog Ghost Lantern clan. If we can't kill him here, it's almost impossible to kill him in a damned place like the country of water." After listening to Obsidian's words, let alone Sasori, even Kakashi couldn't help but glance at Hyojin. A ice release bloodline limit is already very rare nowadays. If combined with the boiling release bloodline limit and the various secret techniques of the Ghost Lantern clan, then the Suijin is almost immortal in the misty and watery environment of the country of water. Having all his trump cards pointed out by Obsidian, Hyojin said to Kakashi in annoyance, "What are you looking at? Take care of yourself first. Don't be soft-hearted just because he's an old acquaintance, or else we'll all die here." Kakashi didn't say anything and locked his gaze back onto Obsidian. In a split second, the 4 people in the Divine Might space, Kakashi and Obsidian, Hyojin and Sasori, stared at each other. Swish, after a brief confrontation, the 4 of them moved almost at the same time. Kakashi and Obsidian were fighting, while Hyojin was entangled by Sasori's Hiruhu puppet in the country of fire. Amai's patrol team was patrolling the forest. Suddenly, the leader stopped in his tracks and leaped onto the crown of a big tree. He activated his Byakugan and looked into the distance. Swish, swish, swish. At this time, the other members of the patrol team also jumped onto the crown of the tree one by one and looked into the sky. After observing for a while, a member of the patrol team asked in confusion, "Captain, what are you looking at? Isn't there only a dark cloud in the sky over there?" Another member echoed, "Yes, there's not even a bird." The patrol captain of the Hyuga clan did not explain anything, but the expression on his face became more and more solemn, and the bulging veins on both sides of his temples also bulged, as if he was trying his best to activate the Byakugan, trying to see something clearly. One of the team members who noticed that something was wrong asked in a low voice, "Captain, what's wrong?" At this time, the captain of the Hyuga clan's patrol team replied, "There's something wrong with that dark cloud." "What's wrong with it?" The team members were all puzzled, because in their opinion, although the dark cloud in the distant sky covered the sky and was huge, there was nothing wrong with it. The captain explained, "Inside and outside that dark cloud, it's filled with intense chakra." It's simply, halfway through his words, the captain was speechless because he could not find a word to accurately describe the terrifying scene he saw in his Byakugan. Such a huge dark cloud is filled with chakra. How terrifying is that ninjutsu? The members of the patrol team were all dumbfounded. At this moment, the Hyuga clan's patrol captain finally saw the true situation of the dark cloud clearly and said in horror, "Detonation talismans. All of them are detonation talismans." After saying that, the captain did not have time to explain to the team members and directly released the communication eagle. Not long after, 3 Generations Naruto, as the consulting elder, received the information from the patrol team in the Naruto building and urgently summoned Itachi disguised as Hyojin, Zhuan Shao Chun, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and several other consulting elders. After reading the information from the patrol team, Zhuan Shao Chun frowned and said, "A cloud made of detonation talismans is floating towards the village? Could it be that the information is wrong?" Tsunade also felt very strange. How many detonation talismans would it take to form a cloud? A detonation talisman is about the size of a banknote. Even if it costs 100 million, it would only take a few boxes to fill it up. Wouldn't it take 10 billion or even 100 billion detonation talismans to form a cloud? How is this possible? 3 Generations replied. The captain of the patrol team who sent back the information is a Hyuga with Byakugan, so the information may be a little exaggerated, but it should be based on evidence. Jiraiya asked, "Sensei, do you suspect that it is Akatsuki?" 3 Generations nodded, then looked out of the window with his hands behind his back. "Akatsuki first attacked Daimyo, then besieged the mist, and now I am afraid that they are officially making a move on our Mai." Itachi gently nodded. He very much agreed with the judgment of 3 Generations. At this time, Zhuan Shao Chun asked Itachi, "Kurodo, have you contacted Akatsuki yet?" As the fire demon of Akatsuki, Itachi shook his head awkwardly. Here is the second update. It's the end of the month. Students who still have monthly votes, don't forget to vote. Also, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1067. From the moment the Akatsuki organization attacked the daimyos, many of the 5 great shinobi villages were aware of the Akatsuki organization's motive, so since then, Mai has been trying to contact Amatsukami. In everyone's opinion, only the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, can match the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato. As for the other ninjas, even the Kage of the 5 great shinobi villages, who once stood at the peak of the shinobi world, can't resist Nagato, who has the Rinnegan. Therefore, whether or not Amatsukami can support Mai is the key to whether or not he can resist the Akatsuki organization's attack. Seeing Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, shook his head, the elder's expression became solemn. Everyone in the room is very clear that without the support of Amatsukami, it will be very difficult for the 5 great shinobi villages to resist the Akatsuki organization's attack. At this time, an Umbu rushed into Naruto's office and reported, 3 generations, 5 generations, elders, the intelligence team has confirmed that the information sent back by the patrol team is true. And Tsunade immediately said, "Don't hesitate." The Umbu could only bite the bullet and said, "And the actual situation is even worse than what the patrol team reported." After learning the information sent back by the patrol team, Kaiichi Yamanaka immediately used the mind reversal technique to control a communication eagle to fly to the scene of the incident and confirm with his own eyes that the information sent back by the patrol team is true. Not only that, he also found that the information sent back by the patrol team is not only not exaggerated, but also incomplete. The cloud of detonation talismans that is coming towards my village is not just a single cloud, but a whole cloud that covers the sky and covers the earth. The scope and scale of the explosion is so large that if he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't be able to imagine it. 3 generations murmured, "Is the Akatsuki organization going to launch a decisive battle?" Zhuan Xiaochun, Jiraiya, and Tsunade were also worried. At first, they thought that the information sent back by the patrol team was exaggerated, but now they found out that it is exactly the opposite. Everyone shuddered at the thought of a huge cloud of detonation talismans approaching the village. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, made a prompt decision and suggested, "Arrange for the villagers to be relocated." The 3 generations pondered for a moment and nodded. "Yes, this time, regardless of whether the Akatsuki wants to fight with us or not, we will treat it as a final battle." The advisory elders nodded in unison, agreeing with Itachi's proposal and the policy of 3 generations. Then, 3 generations looked at Itachi. Itachi said consciously, "You have more experience than me, so you should be the one to deploy." Time is pressing, and the 3 generations didn't delay and immediately began to deploy. Kurodo, the village has already assembled the ninja army, now you have full authority to command. Tsunade, you are in charge of evacuating the villagers. Xiaochun, go and inform the other Kage that the war is coming. And Itachi, Tsunade, and Zhuan Xiaochun nodded one after another and left Naruto's office. After the others left, Jiraiya asked, "Sensei, what about me? The Akatsuki's target is Naruto and Fu." After a pause, 3 generations looked at Jiraiya and said, "From now on, their safety is in your hands." Jiraiya nodded heavily. "I understand." 3 generations Naruto stopped Jiraiya, who was about to leave. "Don't worry, before that I need you to do something else." Jiraiya looked at 3 generations in confusion. Walking to the window, 3 generations looked at the bustling street outside and said, "It will take a lot of time to evacuate the villagers, so we must think of a way to delay the Akatsuki's attack." Frowning, Jiraiya thought of something. "Sensei, you want to carry out the plan proposed by Kakashi?" 3 generations nodded lightly. "Yes." Jiraiya was a little hesitant. "But Amatsuki," 3 generations said, "don't worry, if Amatsuki wants to pursue the matter, this old man will bear all the consequences. Don't think too much, just carry out the plan." Jiraiya said no more and immediately left Naruto's office. On Itachi's side, after leaving Naruto's office, he didn't immediately take over Mai's army. Instead, he sent out several crows to inform Hyojin about the situation in the village in detail and asked Hyojin for advice. Tsunade immediately rushed to my hospital and mobilized all the medical ninjas to evacuate the villagers in an orderly manner according to the previously set plan. Jiraiya caught up with Zhuan Xiaochun and rushed to the Umbu base to inform 3 generations Tsuchikage, 4 generations Laying, and 4 generations Kazekage about the Akatsuki's upcoming attack in Mai. For a moment, the peaceful village was plunged into chaos. A series of urgent and sharp alarms echoed in the sky above the village. In the practice field next to the Uchiha clan's land, Jishuei and Shinichi, the 2 Uchiha clan's Manjikyu, are guiding Sasuke to use the Manjikyu Sharingan. Sasuke may have some shortcomings in terms of personality, but his ability to learn and absorb skills is unquestionable. After a week or 2 of targeted practice, he has gradually become proficient in the use of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and the use of some small skills has also become more and more handy. At this moment, the loud alarm stopped Sasuke's practice. He looked around blankly and asked, "Hey, what's going on with this alarm?" Jishuei and Shinichi looked at each other with a dignified expression on their faces. As the captain of the police force, they are very clear about the requirements of the village's alarm. This level of alarm is only sounded when the village encounters a major crisis and the villagers need to be evacuated immediately. Swish, suddenly, a figure landed on the practice field. It's none other than Jiraiya, who just came from the Umbu's base. He glanced at Jishuei, Shinichi, and Sasuke and said, "You are all here." Jishuei quickly asked, "Jiraiya-sama, what happened?" Jiraiya told the 3 Uchiha in detail about the Akatsuki's upcoming attack, and then said, "The current situation is very urgent. The Akatsuki may launch an attack on the village at any time." Sasuke was a little eager. "Sensei, what do you need me to do?" Jishuei also said, "Jiraiya-sama, what do you need me to do?" Jiraiya looked at Jishuei and Shinichi and said, "The village does have a mission, and I need your help." Jishuei asked, "What mission?" At this time, Jiraiya took out 2 cloaks that are very similar to Amatsukumi's standard black cloaks and 2 flame patterns. "It will take some time to move the villagers, so we must delay the Akatsuki's attack. So the village needs the 2 of you to pretend to be Amatsukumi's fire demon to stop the Akatsuki." Taking the cloak and mask that are obviously rough-made from Jiraiya's hands, Jishuei had a thought in her mind. "Can I use my own?" First update, please recommend monthly votes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.